Hua Wanyue gracefully somersaulted in midair. The heavenly hero Red Luan emerged, and she landed upon its back. Hua Wanyue put pressure on her wound that was deep enough to show bone. The corner of her mouth leaked blood, making the originally composed and graceful Hua Wanyue fill with an even more poignant and sad beauty. Dark Star. In fact, Wu Xinjie had once mentioned that the White Tiger 7 spirit stars could be considered an anomaly in the 1,000 years of star duels. Each of their contracted star generals were different from the rest, and they could not be underestimated. Actually, there was no need for her warning. 4 top-notch heavenly stars like Hua Wanyue, they would not have that sort of boring arrogance. But even so, Hua Wanyue still sampled the power of the girl in front of her. When she first saw that the Dark Star was suppressed by Wuxia in direct combat, she had thought nothing of her. Now that she thought about it, this truly was terrifying. It was very clear that her opponent had deliberately acted weak to hide her martial arts, and by the time Zijin got close to her, Hua Wanyue could not have foreseen that her attack would be lightning fast, instantaneous. Good thinking. Hua Wanyue concentrated her star energy, staunching her bleeding. Having been heavily injured by one of Zijin's blows, not only was Hua Wanyue calm, on the contrary, she was impressed. Dark Star Blue-Faced Beast Yang Zijin, your innate skill treasure knife is timeless, truly makes me intrigued. Blue-Faced Beast Yang Zijin was still as tranquil as dead water. Her cast a sidelong glance, nodded and continued her attack. The heavenly hero Red Luang cried and stirred up a scorching, 100 Zhonglong blaze. The beautiful flames flowed in all directions. Black shadows became a dark chasm that tore apart the flames. Yang Zijin easily cut the flames down, and with a leap, she ruthlessly sliced towards Hua Wanyue's neck. The heavily injured Hua Wanyue could barely hold her short spear. The hero star that was without a contract lost much in terms of star energy, and Yang Zijin's Star Master could be considered the #1 Star Master in all of Liangshan continent. His cultivation was unfathomable. And this slash made the heavenly hero Red Luan wail. Just as Hua Wanyue was about to be killed. Suddenly, the surrounding flames parted. A black, elegant figure brought a whistling faint wind. Yang Zijin's expression changed and she spun around. Weapons made contact. Sparks flew everywhere. But after this sword light was blocked, it suddenly slashed in the form of a crescent, curving from left and right, drawing a curve. It twisted towards Yang Zijin's delicate neck like a lasso. Dark rank technique. Blood-splashing Mandarin duck. Yang Zijin's forehead flickered with a blue star crest. Her figure turned dark, and her reactions were extremely quick. She avoided this most fatal strike, but 2 curved sword wounds appeared on her clavicle. Wuxia stood tall, her expression cold. Her dark technique just now had been surprisingly blocked. This dark star Yang Zijin's extreme realm was perhaps not on the low end. Seeing Yang Zijin's calm breathing, her body technique steady, completely without any fluster or confusion, showing a bearing only top-notch martial generals had. Never expected Dark Star Blue-Faced Beast Yang Zijin to surprisingly be so vexing. Wuxia snorted. Her white and black unicorn tiger also rushed out of the flames, landing beside her. Hearing its mistress, it first blinked, and then it turned its tiger eyes to stare at Yang Zijin. Wuxia careful of her treasure knife. Hua Wanyue's breathing was ragged. Can you last? Wuxia asked. Hua Wanyue nodded, but to provide support perhaps was very difficult. The hero star could only use star energy to protect her wound. This kind of healing consumed star energy relatively slowly, but the weakness was that she could not fight for the time being. Wuxia grunted, that is fine. Yang Zijin, will you bring great disaster to the Azure Dragon for the sake of those White Tiger Demonkin? Wuxia inquired. Yang Zijin's gaze glinted oddly. Clearly, she did not have any interest to answer. Wuxia also felt that she had asked in vain. Star generals descended from Maiden Mountain. They strived for Maiden Mountain. The Azure Dragon territory, or other lands, were merely a temporary post that none of them cared for. Wuxia found that after having been with Su Xing for so long, her heart had softened a bit. She smiled. This tenderness actually made her feel very pleasant. This situation of mutual slaughter will finally end. Yang Zijin vaguely said. The response was a noble frost demonic lotus. black sword light and white sword light blended together, its momentum pressuring her. Concentrated on a single point, she attacked Yang Zijin's forehead. The weapon in Yang Zijin's hand released its concealment, revealing a simple and unadorned long saber. The saber's hilt was carved with fierce beasts, and its blade was like a beast's fang. The edge flowed with a ghostly blue fire. On it were 4 flickering stars. Extreme vast blue emperor saber. 2. Seeing Yang Zijin destined star weapon manifest, she also appeared to be planning on using full power. Blue-faced beast Yang Zijin's extreme vast blue emperor saber rolled forward. Powerful saber chi swirled like an eddy, immediately stirring away the sword threads that were approaching her, but several strands passed through Yang Zijin's defenses that were not fully formed, parring her long robe, drawing a bit of blood. Countless cracks appeared in the luxurious, extravagant palace, tottering on the edge of collapse. And Wuxia already seized this chance to slither past Yang Zijin's saber technique. She knew that the girl's innate skill treasure knife is ageless was powerful, so she did not dare be careless. She arrived behind Yang Zijin, light as a feather, her breathing vanishing in a split second. Wuxia was expressionless. Before her foot touched the ground, her twin swords continued to twist, stabbing towards Yang Zijin's wide-open back. Not good. Wuxia's fingers felt cold, and she suddenly felt her chest burn hot. Without even turning her head back to look, Dark Star Yang Zijin had thrust the long saber in her right hand behind her, stabbing fiercely back at Wuxia's chest. Her speed was fast, not something that could be described as having eyes in the back of her head. Yellow technique. Tooth extraction. 3. Wuxia quickly dodged left. She saw Dark Star Yang Zijin's saber pierce through the cracked palace wall. She pushed, and then the entire palace wall crumbled with a groan. Interesting. Wuxia knew that the Dark Star's innate skill was capable of allowing her special techniques to become nearly imperceptible to star generals at the moment of attack, but similarly, she would need to waste a proportional amount of star energy to maintain it. Wuxia did not believe that blue-faced beast Yang Zijin could use it too many more times. Each time her high-speed attack missed, that meant Yang Zijin was one step closer to defeat. Yang Ji, impressive. Take this. Wuxia shouted, and her double-headed sword pressed the attack. The speed of Dark Star Yang Zijin's saber technique had a wildly tyrannical determination that could not be practiced. Facing Wuxia's tiger-like ferocity, her mountain-like pressure, she also faced death with steadfastness, acting calmly. Before the saber drew near, killing intent already pushed against Wuxia's cheeks. Wuxia's hands quickly crossed, her double swords defending. Dark Star Yang Zijin's extreme vast blue emperor saber was held in front of her chest, and then it slashed flagrantly. Saber chi gushed out, and 2 trenches were gouged out the earth, splitting open. Wuxia calmly leapt up, her nimble footwork grazing past the brazen saber light. Her double sword slashed about, like the fangs of a beast. The double-ended sword hacked towards Dark Star Yang Zijin's saber. Upon closing in on Dark Star Yang Zijin's body, she suddenly became quick, sharp as a passing wind, ruthlessly seizing Dark Star Yang Zijin from all sides. Oh! Dark Star Yang Zijin did not retreat. She continually slashed several dozen times with a speed too fast for the naked eye, forcefully dissolving Wuxia's fierce attack. As expected of Wu Song, she truly was incredible, to use double sword so expertly. The calm Yang Zijin's eyes flashed with fervor. That apathetic, somewhat lonely expression showed the fervor of meeting someone familiar. Although this passion lasted for only an instant, it was enough to make people feel terrified. Their attacks went back and forth. Yang Zijin's saber was still fast as before, and her blinding treasure saber could not be defended against. Although Wuxia continuously warded off several blows, Yang Zijin was boundless. Her speed instantly shifted, and her saber technique instantly died off. In a split second, Wuxia's body had cuts. So formidable. Wuxia's heart was astonished. Her hands fluttered, and 4 rays of the black demonic lotus sword chi shot forth. 2 of the sword chi were very quickly blasted apart by Yang Zijin's saber. Snow-white sword light scuttled over, and remaining rays quietly closed in from behind Dark Star Yang Zijin. Only then did the sword chi split apart menacingly. No matter who it was, they could not possibly escape unscathed from this earth-shattering attack. Wuxia's double-ended sword split. In the confusing flurry of attacks, she arrived beside Yang Zijin, her hands bringing a shining cold light. Another dark technique. Blood-splashing Mandarin duck. Dark Star Yang Zijin's expression concentrated, and her figure crouched. All of her body's strength exploded, and she blocked the incoming dark technique with even faster technique. But this time, Wuxia still won out. Her legs dazzlingly changed, walking a profound pace, circle after circle. Yang Zijin was kicked. She blocked several blows, but she was unable to bear Wuxia's confusing footwork, and was struck several more times. Her aggression promptly vanished. Mandarin duck legs, jade ring steps. Dark technique, heavenly dragon dance. 5. Yang Zijin's pupils contracted, and her wrists burned. On Wuxia's last kick towards her, she suddenly shouted. At this moment, Crystal Palace. Everyone was still unaware of Wuxia and Yang Zijin's battle. They were immersed in the deafening auction, which appeared particularly fervent. 6th item, Dark Crystal Blood Coral. 900 billion deal. Following the shout of a bid, the true Immortal Hall's immortal outside heaven successfully bid for this treasure found 10,000 li under the sea, which made the atmosphere reach a climax. The treasure banquet's 7th item arrived on the platform at this time. When Long Wanxin held it in her hands, the frenzied atmosphere immediately froze, and the hall was rocked by an intake of breath. In everyone's eyes, a ring appeared, a very plain and simple ring. But when the surrounding lanterns dimmed, that ring suddenly became extremely resplendent. That astral stone was just like a bright moon. Bright moon ring. 7. A quaking voice came from a Supervoid cultivator. It was difficult to imagine that a person could make a Supervoid cultivator so tongue-tied, so excited. But no one ridiculed him. On the contrary, they were like him, incomparably shocked. Bright moon ring. That was the ring once worn by the Bright Moon Sage, who peeked into the Bright Moon Longevity Palace and practiced its longevity cultivation method. This type of accessory alone was enough to drive people wild, no need to mention its price. Never expected the treasure banquet to surprisingly have the Bright Moon ring. The Crystal Dragon Palace is too awesome. How did they obtain it? I heard that when the Bright Moon Sage flew into Star World, he took this ring with him. I never heard that it had fallen down here. The Liangshan continent's most mysterious cultivator, a genius character that no one can equal in cultivation. His lifetime of wisdom was vast as the sea. I think there is no need to introduce the accomplishments of the Bright Moon Sage. Long Wanxin inwardly felt satisfaction at everyone's astonishment. This reaction was within her expectations, and it was precisely this reason that the Crystal Dragon Palace could hold the position it did today. The Longevity Palace has been solved by the Purple Thunder Monster. The longevity cultivation method has already disappeared from this world. The cultivators that thus broke through their limits from the Bright Moon Sage's revelations are too many to count. And now, this ring has been presented before us. Everyone, your servant naturally need not mention a price. Long Wanxin's voice was calm. As expected of one who had a lifetime of experience, she was indifferent towards this ring. What else could be more valuable than this ring of the Bright Moon Sage? But some people were skeptical. Imperial Empress Long, could it be you actually did not inspect it? Perhaps there is a cultivation method the sage left behind in the Bright Moon ring. If it is an empty ring, then would that not be an enormous disappointment? Everyone's concerns are warranted, but this palace can guarantee that there is still a forbid dance left on the Bright Moon ring. So fellows lacking strength, please reconsider. Long Wanxin slightly smiled. Long Wanxin issued an enticing speech on the platform. She took the time to sweep her gaze over each of the booths. After the Ring of Bright Moon appeared, whether it was the Devil Star Palace or the Great Sage of Falling Dragon Mountain, whether it was the Azure Dragon Territories #1 sect Most High Path or Emperor Liang, even Long Wanxin's daughter, Long knew who was in her own corner of the hall, all showed interested expressions at the same time. No way. She's surprisingly auctioning the Bright Moon ring off. Why doesn't she keep it for herself? Sure, Yuan could not fathom this. It is not so simple. She must have already seen through the bright moon ring, but she is unable to break through the forbid dance for the time being. Wu Xinjie disagreed. Despite Long Wanxin speaking with a clear conscience, the knowledge star still sensed the forbid dance on the ring had already been probed. However, it appeared that Long Wanxin had not been in possession of the ring for too long, for it was still not completely broken. Do we buy it? Shi Yuan asked. The bright moon ring is already useless to Su Xing. Zhang Yuqi disdainfully said. That bright moon sage was no more than someone who had the good fortune to obtain the Longevity Palace's badly damaged longevity cultivation method. Su Xing had already obtained the complete palace, so naturally, he had no real need for this. Wu Xinjie nodded. In fact, they really did not need it. However, the others will fight for this bright moon ring intensely. Wu Xinjie thoughtfully smiled, already able to sense that things were on the line for each of the great sects, straining the atmosphere. Everyone knew that the Purple Thunder monster had obtained the Longevity Palace, and it was a pity that no one else would ever know of it in their lifetime. If he had obtained this bright moon ring and the longevity cultivation method, he would be a tiger that had grown wings, soaring to heaven in a single bound. What a pity that such intense bidding has nothing to do with us. Truly boring. Shi Yuan pouted. We can actually use this to drive a wedge between all of the sections. Wu Xinjie smiled. Long Wanxin's fanning motions had reached the end. She finally said, Rumor has it that the Bright Moon Sage's Bright Moon Ring has an astral stone. He has recorded some notes and experience of cultivation into the ring. Someday, if its fated person is able to solve the mystery, they can also reach heaven in a single bound. Now, everyone, what else could be more worthwhile than the longevity cultivation method? Questions Long Wanxin. How did you obtain this bright moon ring? Immortal Outside Heaven asked. This was conferred by a certain fellow. They had found it in the White Tiger Territory's Primordial Chaos Sea. Because they were unable to break the forbid dance, they brought it here. Is that so? However, this palace shall make it clear first of all, that the Dragon Palace also wishes to obtain this ring. Long Wanxin's words made everyone surprised. Hey, Imperial Empress Long, you want to buy it as well? Is this not too sloppy? Exactly. The value of the Bright Moon Ring is priceless, as everyone knows. For Wanxin to want this treasure, everyone should be able to understand. Long Wanxin was neither slow nor hurried. There was no mistake. Who would refuse the longevity cultivation method? For the sake of fairness, this palace has adopted a new bidding style. Long Wanxin smiled. We wonder what that is. Long Wanxin gave a signal. Long clan sisters handed her a jade strip like they did with all the other cultivators present. Wu Xinjie also received a white jade strip. Carefully inspecting it, this jade strip had an odd forbid dance array. To break it was not so easily done in a short time. Wu Xinjie understood her plan, and laughed in her mind. As expected, this was somewhat interesting. After seeing that everyone obtained one, Long Wanxin spoke again. This auction's item can be said to be unique in all the world, unable to be duplicated. For the sake of avoiding unexpected side issues and to avoid bringing bidders any unnecessary trouble, this time the Crystal Dragon Palace is prepared to use a jade strip auction. This manner actually made all of the cultivators feel novel. However, if Su Xing was here, he could probably recognize this. This jade strip closed bid auction actually was the secret auctions of modern cities. This closed bid auction was also called a tender. This referred to auctioneers who announced beforehand the details and conditions of the auction's target. Afterwards, buyers would hand over sealed bids to the auctioneer within a certain time period. The auctioneer would publicly announce the start at a predetermined time, and after confirming everyone's bids, she would choose the one with the highest bid. This kind of auction could make everyone make their highest bid. The manner was simple and clear, the results also great. However, the final price the Crystal Dragon Palace would take was from the jade platform. So long as a jade strip was put upon it, it would link with an array and automatically reveal the price. This was also to allow everyone to witness impartially, equitably, publicly. They would have nothing to say. The Bright Moon Ring's minimum bid was 100 trillion. And everyone would start making the highest bid they believed themselves able to make starting from here. Because they could not know the bids of others, A prudent price was crucial. Wu Xinjie did not hesitate to write a 300 trillion gold bid, and then hand it over to a maid. She was speechless. Wu Xinjie's explanation of this was the bright moon ring was absolutely unobtainable at 300 trillion. The Crystal Dragon Palace's bid was definitely more than 500 trillion. Originally, Wu Xinjie had wanted to write 400 trillion, but she found that they did not have much capital, leaving her with no choice. Immediately afterwards, the other booths and top-notch cultivators turned over their sealed jade strips to the auctioneers. The atmosphere in the Crystal Palace became extremely serious at this time. Even those Supervoid cultivators that stood at the peak of Liangshan continent, their powers reaching into the heavens, became especially cautious, somewhat uneasy as they waited for the results. Long Wanxin took a breath. In front of everyone's faces, she placed the jade strips into that array. From Falling Dragon Mountain, Great Sage Falling Sky bids 200 trillion for the bright moon ring. Long Wanxin slightly smiled, her expression modest. Those cultivators below gasped. The first bid was already several times higher. The Rock Demon King felt pain seeing those envious gazes. Falling Dragon Mountain was not wealthy. These 200 trillion was absolutely going to make this Rock Demon King decline. He could imagine that when he returned to the Vermilion Bird territory, he would be surrounded and attacked by the Holy Mothers of Silver Firmament Mountain and others, but even if he had to throw away Falling Dragon Mountain to obtain the longevity cultivation method, he would not spare anything. Under this half-lose, half-win mentality, the Rock Demon King was very uneasy. However, his expectations did not last long. The next bid made him sigh. Representing the Devil Star Palace, a bid of 300 trillion. Long Wanxin's eyebrows rose. Next, the other cultivators were nearly stupefied. This would be difficult to forget for a lifetime, because each and every bid was something they would never be able to obtain in several lifetimes. And the tens of millions they could bid with were simply drops in the ocean. True Immortal Hall bids 250 trillion. Lifeless Hall bids 240 trillion. Purple Firmament Immortal Palace, 180 trillion. Water Illusion Fairy Shiyu's bid, 300 trillion. There was a great clamor. The prices continued to hover around 200 trillion, and for a no sect, no background fairy to surprisingly make a 300 trillion bid made everyone startled. The Crystal Dragon Palace auction always made a superficial appraisal of its participants. Since she made a bid, this demonstrated there was no problem. Everyone subconsciously looked at that booth, but there was only blankness. Most high path bids, 100 trillion. They were still astonished. The most high path's 100 billion pulled them back to reality. As the number one sect, the most high path's bid was the lowest. Clearly they were giving up. This made everyone feel perplexed, and even Long Wanxin's brows rose. Northern Darkness has fish would not use the longevity cultivation method to make a comeback, but instead renounced it. This honestly was not like him. Long Wanxin knew that although 3 of the great Supervoid ancestors were dead, the most high path's capital was substantial. The Great Liang's assets were unlimited, and they could at least bring out 500 trillion. Wu Xinjie's brow wrinkled. She took out her heaven-concealing star fan, and shut her eyes. The real surprise came at the end when it was time for the Great Liang dynasty's Emperor Liang to announce his bid. Everyone held their breath, very eager to see how high the bid of the Great Liang's number one person was. But Emperor Liang had given up on this bidding. The Great Liang's number one sect and person giving up one after the other on the Bright Moon Ring did not make any sense. At the end, it was without a doubt that the Crystal Dragon Palace's bid of 500 trillion that made everyone flabbergasted, successfully obtaining this treasure. The Most High Path's booth. The disciples of the Most High Path were confused, looking to Ancestor Northern Darkness in bewilderment. Northern Darkness has fish held a scroll. Under a green candle flame, he read through the scroll, a studious disposition. Despite the Bright Moon Ring, even the treasures and magic weapons from before as well, Northern Darkness has fish showed an unconcerned manner. He mumbled to himself, but no one knew what he was thinking of. The Most High Path's number one ancestral master was aloof, and the other disciples were unable to help but worry helplessly. A long while after, Northern Darkness has fish said, "What is the situation outside?" Reporting to Ancestral Master. The Dragon Palace is currently auctioning the 8th treasure 9 turns pill. Do you want us to take action? Xie Yuan asked. No need. Northern Darkness has fish apathetically said. Has Bing Qingxian still not been found? Junior brother Qingxian still has not been found. Northern Darkness has fish wrinkled his brow. Then he looked to Xie Yuan and said, very well. You bring the remaining disciples now and leave the Crystal Dragon Palace. Return to the Most High Path, and seal the mountain. I alone can manage this place. Ancestral Master. Hurry and go. Northern Darkness has fish coldly said. Xie Yuan felt this was very odd, but he did not dare disobey. He immediately summoned his comrades, and they quickly left the booth. After they left, the Most High Path's booth was left with only Northern Darkness has fish. The atmosphere appeared particularly cheerless. Northern Darkness has fish closed his book and gazed outside with a cold smile. The time has almost come. Long Wanqin, for now, you can help hold on to that bright moon ring for this old man. Suddenly, Northern Darkness has fish's eyes concentrated and shot out a ray of light, disturbing the air. In another booth, Wu Xinjie gasped. This old Taoist is very powerful. He has surprisingly sensed my wind from empty cave star magic. Elder sister, did you find something? Zhang Yuqi asked. I fear things are not good. That Most High Path is apparently planning something. Little Yuaner, we must quickly go find Xiao. Xiao is in danger. Wu Xinjie said. I shall leave this place to little sisters. Xiyu gravely nodded. The Crystal Dragon Palace's 9th item, 777. What are you all doing? The Crystal Dragon Palace's imperial bodyguard saw the commotion and rushed over. When he saw that there were people arranging an odd formation, he immediately shouted, but the words had hardly left his mouth when several flying daggers pierced his chest. Xiang Nanmai chuckled. Seeing that other cultivators were coming to this place to investigate, she pointed her hand. Her concealed weapons flew out, like shadows, and there were immediately several more corpses. There already is not much time left. Han Bing continuously formed hand seals. Her magic energy that represented water and ice poured into the along the river during Qingming. The scroll shifted, and each color of the 7 spirits chant endlessly clashed upon it. The 7 spirits' absolute destruction array endlessly weakened the seal upon the along the river during Qingming, as the other star generals stood on guard. Yi Futa was in the center. He formed a hand seal, and a fire dragon and phoenix flew out. His expression retained a bit of hesitance, but seeing that the along the river during Qingming's seal was increasingly weak, there was not much more he could change. At this time, an anomaly already appeared in the Crystal Dragon Palace. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and thunder currently blew about in the palace. The cultivators that remained were frightened, and some promptly fled the courtyard. Some stayed and rushed for the sight of the anomaly. Then, many cultivators with strong senses of justice would shout several words of righteousness that turned out to be their last words. Zijin is currently engaged in battle with Wusong. Shall I help her? Hao Bingxin rubbed her hands, very eager to go. Having lost to Wusong in battle once before, she wanted to take back a bit of face this time, but watching that faraway battle, she learned some martial arts from that battle of top-notch star generals. Elder sister Yang Zijin is truly formidable, more formidable than Wusong. She has trained in the White Tiger territory and has a star master. It looks like elder sister Xiao is about to lose. What a pity. Yi Futa's expression showed refusal. He did not want to be left without a star general at his side, so Hao Bingxin could only give up. His worries, as expected, were not wrong. Very quickly, this abnormality drew over another absolutely fierce star general. So you are the ones behind this plot? Rolling thunder boomed. The one who spoke was a flashy loli holding a giant mace. Her pair of flame-like eyes burned. Astonishingly, it was Qin Mingyue. The little loli raised her mace, showing an excited expression. Qin Mingyue did not participate in the auction either due to Song Qingxi's concerns. Upon seeing this anomaly, she was drawn over, only to see this scene. Elder sister Qin Ming, you came at just the perfect time. Hao Bingxin's eyes glinted. The two little Lolas were like mirror images, each of their figures adorable and tiny, yet each gripped their own incongruously enormous weapons. As if she had found a familiar friend, Hao Bingxin soared to attack Qin Mingyue. In just an instant, the two giant divine weapons slammed into one another. Hao Bingxin's pupils suddenly contracted, and her whole body gave rise to a nearly imperceptible shudder. A tyrannical, fully berserk aggression squeezed Hao Bingxin, like Mount Tai pushing down on her. Hao Bingxin did not dare underestimate this lowly who was nevertheless a Five Tigers general, the fiery thunderbolt. She promptly called forth her star bast. A great silvery fane wind spontaneously appeared beside her. The sharp whistle was ear-piercing, and the girl's eyes became more translucent than ice and snow in a split second. Yellow technique, fire beacon reaching sky. Bang! Qin Mingyue's giant mace let out flames that covered the sky. This blaze thronged about. A frighteningly loud noise, and a multitude of bloody arrows stormed the sky. Hao Bingxin's body already was like a shooting star, shot far, far away. Her body was already wounded, yet she howled in laughter, not subdued in the slightest as she hopped back up. Then, she became a ray of silver light that forcibly straddled the space of several zhang between them. Her speed was demonic. During the time before Qin Mingyue could react, the broadsword already made close contact with Qin Mingyue's petite body. Terrifying force instantly exploded. Qin Mingyue's mace blocked. Hao Bingxin was startled, for even that weapon that had been strengthened to 4-star was completely unable to bear it. Powerful strength was exerted, and Hao Bingxin's body could not help but be sent flying. Along the way, she collided through palaces and trees, the collapse of which aroused great amounts of dust, the sounds frightening people. Qin Mingyue's strength was surely beyond imagination. Kill! Qin Mingyue roared. Her hostility increased to a berserk level, and the swiftness of her speed was just like a flaming chariot. She unexpectedly grasped the imperceptible moment of weakness Hao Bingxin had when she landed and attacked her. Hao Bingxin's body hung in midair. A gentle white light already appeared from her body, quickly forming a protective barrier. At the same time it helped her ward off this blow. Her own weapon was supplemented with healing star energy, straining to recover the wounds she had sustained. Her originally somewhat frail state quickly recovered under the effects of this star beast. Hao Bingxin immediately counterattacked, slicing with her sword. The fire feather thunder beast emerged from thin air. Qin Mingyue sat on this unreasonable and berserk beast, charging forth with no intent to retreat. Hao Bingxin's slash was intercepted by the star beast. Only then did her bad luck begin. Fighting intent surged against Qin Mingyue. Even if Lin Yingmei were here, she perhaps would not have feared this at all. A familiar, ear-piercing whistle once again poured into Hao Bingxin's eardrums. That red-colored delicate figure abruptly appeared above her. A giant mace was already swinging right into her face. Hao Bingxin used her greatsword the next instant to skillfully deflect, but the wolf-toothed fire beacon mace's power was astonishing, firmly beating her back. Boom! A large amount of dirt and stone shot into the sky, surprisingly reaching an altitude several zhang high. The nearby ground displayed quaking that was visible to the naked eye. The white light halo around Hao Bingxin's body that filled the sky seemed about to break. Blood-red arrows once again sprayed through the sky. An enormous hole appeared in the wall of the palace. Terrifying strength, frightening destructive power. This was an existence that exceeded the limits of a human. Hao Bingxin's heart was shocked. The elder sister Five-Tiger General in front of her was too ferocious. The swift and severe mace let out an ear-piercing scream. Under the fire feather thunder beast, Qin Mingyue's speed and attack power were incomparable. Each hammer strike was comparable to a yellow technique, and furthermore, the fire feather beast spat out thunder fire, forcing Hao Bingxin to retreat step by step. The thunderous sounds of battle echoed across several kilometers. An ash-gray figure was smashed out from the dust. Scarlet blood poured from its body. Drawing far back several dozen zhang away, Hao Bingxin nearly collapsed. She could only use her sword to prop herself into heaving. Her complexion was somewhat pale. One hand tightly clenched an open wound, doing her utmost to staunch the blood spilling out of her. Her eyes were full of shock. She had fought with Wuxia before and believed that her own strength could suffice. Now, facing this Berserk 5 Tiger's general fiery thunderbolt, she then realized that time was merely playing around. Elder sister honestly does not hold back one bit. Hao Bingxin smacked her lips. Thundering grandeur. A booming rumble. The giant mace waved nearby, arrogantly biting over. Bang! Hao Bingxin swung her greatsword, using her dark technique White Dragon leaving sword tip. A white dragon flew out from her sword. Wherever it passed, everything was cut to pieces. Then it slammed into Qin Mingyue. Hao Bingxin was fortunately a 4 heavenly king, so her martial force was not lacking. Seizing her chance to close in, the greatsword continuously wielded a splendid sword technique. White dragon leaving sword tip. White dragon leaving sword tip. Ray after ray of white dragons roared out from Hao Bingxin's sword, cutting the palace's topography into pieces, as if they were slicing tofu. Several halls were turned to dust, and the white dragons surrounded Qin Mingyue. Even if she did not die, she must have been seriously wounded. But Hao Bingxin truly hated this but. A bellowing voice shook the courtyard. Qin Mingyue's figure suddenly spun around, her mace like a whip as it mercilessly swept over Hao Bingxin's body, letting out an enormous noise. Her star beast howled. The fire feather thunder beast was torn apart by the white dragons, and Qin Mingyue withdrew her star beast in astonishment. Hao Bingxin did not expect her to be so resolute, which stifled her. Once again, she took the overwhelming advantage with thundering power. Magnificent star Hao Bingxin's body was completely unable to grasp any sense of balance. Surprisingly, she had been directly struck by Qin Mingyue's mace. In midair, she rolled several times, the intense pain instantly engulfing her whole body, making her unable to help but let out a groan. If it was not for her star beast's protection, she perhaps would be seriously wounded. This groan made Qin Mingyue especially satisfied. Her attack was even more berserk. A storm of flame roared out. With lightning-fast speed, Qin Mingyue's body arrived in a split second. Before Hao Bingxin could react, the wolf-toothed fire beacon mace already ruthlessly smashed towards Hao Bingxin's delicate body, mercilessly pounding her down. Like a wild animal, Qin Mingyue's eyes flashed with an ice-cold glint. In midair she teleported, following as closely as a shadow. That enormous iron mace alternately waved, swift as a shooting star. Its terrifying noises continuously echoed in the space between them. Hao Bingxin bit her lip, arousing her battle potential. She could barely support her great sword, let alone that her own destined star weapon was wide enough to ward off this attack. From a distance of several hundred meters, under Qin Mingyue's thundering attack, Hao Bingxin's defenses became increasingly frail. She could only continuously focus all of her strength to a single point in order to withstand. Only now did she realize how frightening it was to face an elder sister. Little sister, is this all you can do? Eat elder sister's mace. Qin Mingyue explosively shouted. Intense pain made Hao Bingxin unable to even retort. A large bloodlight spurted from the air. The crimson color was ghastly to see. It mixed with the dust that churned in the air, drawing a long, bloody hue. Suddenly, Qin Mingyue swung down her mace that was heavy as 1,000 caddies. The giant wolf-toothed mace smashed into the sea of fire, forming a monster's maw, swallowing space. Any structure caught in this maw was turned into dust. This maw directly swallowed Hao Bingxin, and in the span of instant, swallowed and spat her out several dozen times. The movement was continuous and vicious. Following the progression of this attack, Qin Mingyue's mace abruptly swung away. Once again, she flew out using centrifugal force. In that instant, heaven and earth shook. Dark technique. Flame engulfing mountains rivers after the flames passed. Hao Bingxin had stubbornly withstood them. However, the star beast possessing her body had already been destroyed by Qin Mingyue. She cut a very sorry figure, full of blood and cuts. If the girl could be described as a delicate ceramic, then in that instant, Hao Bingxin was full of cracks. Bingxin. Yifuta felt pained. Do not move. Grandfatherly shouted. The 7 spirits' absolute destruction array required all of the 7 spirits, so he could not move at all. Otherwise, everything would be ruined at the critical moment. Yifuta grit his teeth. Futu Bingxin is fine. How Bingxin's complexion was pale. The girl forced a smile. Humph. Qin Mingyue glanced at them. She disdainfully said, "Little sister, watch this." Saying this, she raised her mace and smashed it downwards. This strike would absolutely smash Magnificent Star Hao Bingxin back into the star nest. But at this moment, a sifting sound resounded in the air. Like a needle piercing through. Qin Mingyue was startled. She promptly stopped and waved a burst of wind and flame, knocking down the sneak-attacking poison needles. However, something even more dangerous came afterwards. A pair of twin sisters appeared in front of her. Their ages similarly young, but their expressions were full of malice. These twins smiled, their communication thoroughly taciturn. Their hands danced at the same time. A poison snake phantom and a scorpion specter suddenly attacked. Heaven Earth Dark Yellow Skill, Snake and Scorpion Beauty's Kiss. Before Qin Mingyue could see clearly, her chest hurt. She had been hit. "You finally came." Grandfather Li laughed. A beautiful woman emerged. She carried in her hand the stars falling dragon sword, and upon seeing this array, she was startled. She proudly nodded. "Five Tigers General Qin Ming. Today is your last day." Lady Snake Scorpion smiled sinisterly. At this moment, captain of the Crystal Dragon Palace's imperial bodyguard, Long Feiji, brought 6 other dragon generals and rushed over from another side. Lady Snake Scorpion said, "It seems you have quite a lot of trouble. Leave this place to me." Ling Feishue and the other star generals were earnest. "Who are you people, to unexpectedly dare cause trouble in the Crystal Dragon Palace?" Long Feiji was shocked. He immediately shouted, "Stop immediately." His answer was a flying dagger. Xiang Nongmei's eyes flashed with a keen light. The battle instantly began. The 6 that Long Feiji brought were of profound cultivation. The sword cultivator dragon generals too attacked without saying a word. Illusory saber light linked into a wall that was completely unable to obstruct Xiang Nongmei's superb hidden weapons. She did not care in the slightest about the weapons of the Dragon Palace's imperial bodyguards that flit past her body, because that was nothing more than the shadow of an illusion. Suddenly, as if reacting to something, Long Feiji's cross spear 3 waved about. Following the rings of metallic clashes, the cross spear blocked the incoming slash that had the force of 1,000 caddies. Countless lights and shadows hid their true sword. The instant their opponent was careless, the murderous intent that existed in reality would slay their prey in an instant. This was the aspect that a dragon general was truly strong in. But this one-strike certain kill was unexpectedly blocked so easily. Long Feiji showed surprise. "This is a star general?" "Use the dragon flying 9 firmaments array." The 7 dragon generals immediately regrouped. Knowing the might of a star general, they did not hesitate at all to use their special ability. The palms of Long Feiji's hands gathered a sparkling ball of light. The blinding silvery flame in his hands quickly spread all around, flowing like water from its master's arms. On the cross spear, a ripple of death was evoked. In the end, the flame condensed into a burning long sword. The dragon generals successively activated the chant, reading their incantations, and flaming swords manifested afterwards. Insignificant tricks. Ling Feishue snorted and fired. Concealed weapons and cannons attacked one after another. But the dragon generals immediately chanted together. Those blades became a dragon shape that unexpectedly stopped all attacks. This appeared somewhat interesting. Ling Feishue was already slightly intrigued by this Crystal Dragon Palace. As the most powerful dragon imperial guard of the Crystal Dragon Palace, the dragon general's formation was naturally surly. Gazing steadily at the figure within the silver flames, the eyes of Ling Feishue and the other star generals could not help but stare. Their pupils were much more astonished than before. The silver light was resplendent, forming a heavenly dragon. This was truly too shocking for the eyes. Towering in the silver flame, the flying dragon flapped its wings, looking as if it was about to plunge into the 9 firmaments. The surrounding cultivators were astonished as well. Both sides faced one another, neither breaking this equilibrium. Ling Feishue's thinking was not at all understanding of the dragon generals, but she was curious about to what degree a normal cultivator could reach. "Kill!" Long Feiji shouted. The next moment, the 7 dragon generals pointed their fingers. 7 gorgeous flying dragons shot out from their weapons, forming a single array. The entire palace was engulfed, even the 7 spirits' absolute destruction array. The flying dragons roared and began unbridled destruction. The silver flame did not harm any structures at all, but its power was not any one bit lowered. Despite her whole body being enveloped in a layer of star energy, Ling Feishue's clothes were not damaged at all. However, her mind began to hurt. Finally, she tasted suffering she had not felt in a long time. That pain of soul being burned, of being engulfed, was etched into her mind. This kind of pain originated directly from her mind. Swallowed by flame that poured down like a torrent, Ling Feishue coldly snorted. Done playing? Now it is our turn. Dark technique. Thunderclap fire rain. Dark technique. Bright mind dragon carving. Dark technique. Killing fish scales. Wuxia and Yang Zijin's battle was already like a wildfire entering its climax. The two were star generals of extraordinary martial arts. The latter was contracted to a star master with enormous star energy support, and was already incapable of losing to Wuxia. In 100 bouts, her advantage was increasingly clear. Sensing that side was increasingly chaotic, Wuxia fought at full power. But the dark star before her eyes was far stronger than she had imagined. The two traded blows quickly at close range. Yang Zijin's attacks were extremely fast, and Wuxia's attacks were not weak. This kind of speed already made the two of them lose any time to think. The world consisted only of the shadows from their duel. At least in Hua Wanyue's eyes, it was a shadowy battle. As a star general also powerful in battle, Wuxia's boxing clearly surpassed Yang Zijin. Even if the latter possessed the treasure blade as ageless innate skill. There were many times that Wuxia had already broke into her opponent's striking distance. If it was not for Yang Zijin's realm being too fast, victory would have already been settled. 5. When Wuxia's sword edge once again sprayed sparks from Yang Zijin's weapon, the tranquil as water and detached woman also finally wrinkled her brow, feeling serious that she had been in this battle for so long. Watch this. Yang Zijin raised the extreme vast blue emperor saber. The blade slashed waved 3 times in succession, and a wave of scorching saber chi rushed out, ripple after ripple. It shockingly possessed the same power as Wuxia's rippling sword chi. Facing the incoming attack that toppled mountains and overturned oceans, Wuxia was not flustered at all. She rushed directly at the center of the saber chi. The saber chi rippled with a melodious sound. That was the rhythm of 2 divine weapons clashing. Yang Zijin suddenly waved her right hand at Wuxia. A dark power like a thunderstorm attacked. In the black sky, there was even more gloom. Then, the instant they brushed past one another, her weapon once again hacked a brilliant arc towards Wuxia. Humph! Wuxia scoffed. That is not certain. Accompanied by confident words, Wuxia's blade fiercely deflected. The next instant, the blade tip that held a cold light once again turned back like a serpent. This time, the sharp edge did not slow in the slightest as it broke through Wuxia's defense. The sharp edge instantly stabbed into Wuxia's left shoulder, drawing open another wound. Blood spurted out. An ice-cold wind rose, and just as she was prepared to deliver the final blow, Wuxia had already evaded, wounding herself at the same time with a sword strike. Elder sister, we'll help you. A loud shout resounded. Yang Zijin was taken aback. She saw several young girls. They were Yan Yizhen and the others. Meanwhile, at the Crystal Palace's main hall, everyone was stunned the moment the legendary 7 appeared. This legendary astral treasure that could forcibly rescind and recontract had been hyped increasingly to a fever pitch. Any star master would drool over this, but as for whether the 7 was genuine or not, no one could be certain. The hall was instantly silent. Everyone looked around, probably in search of Su Xing's whereabouts. Everyone knew that the purple thunder monster had contracted Lin Chong. This 7 was perhaps a countermeasure against him. Bidding begins now, Long Wanxin said. The moment she finished speaking, I bid 50 trillion. For resounding and powerful words instantly made everyone even more quiet. This bid's voice came from a magnificent booth. The window was unobscured. Yet there was only a vaguely visible graceful figure. 50 trillion. No one else dared bid. Who were they kidding? Perhaps the double 7 was very useful in the star duels, but to a sect, it was completely meaningless. They could not possibly waste 50 trillion on a mere star general. But Imperial Princess has a condition. She must know whether or not this double 7 is useful. Jinji said. Long Wanxin nodded. This map records the location of the double 7. You may try it, however. This was the addition of an adept. This palace knows not whether it is real or fake. Please be aware. Long Wanxin's words were very gentle. Yet everyone noticed something. No matter. Long Wanxin did not expect the double 7 to have bid at such a high value, however. She did not count on just 50 trillion. I could have gotten so much more. She sighed in her heart. Just as she was about to bring out the 9th and final item. Suddenly, a Long clan sister urgently walked in, and said something to Long Nu. Just at this moment, the entire suddenly shook, as if by an earthquake. Ah, that! Frightened shouts sprung everywhere. Countless cultivators that were spectating the auction cried out and scattered everywhere. Long Wanxin was startled, and put away the last auction item. The Crystal Dragon Palace quaked even more fiercely. Everyone ran away. That is, you saw that a scene far away suddenly changed. Above the Crystal Dragon Palace, an enormous vortex had appeared. In the vortex, the 7 spirit lights of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind and thunder jumped about. In the stirring storm, countless figures were fighting. Heaven fell and the earth rend very fierce. This is. The Supervoid top-notch cultivators each changed expressions. The Crystal Dragon Palace was situated in the deep sea. Its foundation was the most sturdy of all of Liangshan continent's sects, and because it had the connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls, it was stable as a boulder. Even in a major disaster, it would be difficult to shake it. But that formation was something else. The vortex anomaly that appeared made the entire Crystal Dragon Palace quake. Not good. Emperor Liang was taken aback. He promptly flew over, but he stopped instantly. A dragon-shaped wind was spat out of the vortex. Immediately afterwards, sand and stone flew away. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind and thunder all flew about at once. A powerful pressure made many cultivators unable to stand. A few cultivators wanted to run, but they were instantly killed by the rolling wind. By the time the dust settled, the Crystal Dragon Palace recovered its clarity. 3 figures simultaneously appeared in the sky above. Among them was a very graceful youth wearing an imperial robe. Her hand held a scroll, and a hairpin and crown sat atop her head. Her robe fluttered, quite with a feeling that was carefree of the world. That youth was extremely refined, and there were 2 women beside that youth. Even Emperor Liang was unable to see through their cultivation. But that imperial robe of Liao beasts, how could Emperor Liang ever forget it? She was none other than that prehistoric Liao Emperor Yelü Hui. The 3 figures slowly descended. The leader was a refined, delicate and learned young girl. She wore the black and yellow imperial robe of the great Liao and donned a set of swan and eye armor. The hair along the sides of her head ran in front of her chest. If it was not for that slightly bulging chest that clearly showed she was of the female sex, she would have seemed like an elegant and beautiful youth who was gentle as jade. There were 2 women beside the girl. The one on her left was mature and seductive. Her eyes showed a nefarious glint, and her hair was tied into 2 ponytail. She had an odd 3-layered armor covering her upper body. The inner layer was chainmail, the middle layer an armor of sea beast hide, and the outer layer was golden armor. Her black leather trousers stuck against her slender legs. The girl on the right wore dark purple armor. She had light purple hair and a pair of eyes red as blood. She appeared exceptionally frightening. Strangely, various kinds of runes hovered around the girl's surroundings. Having read and reread the 1,000-year history of Liangshan to the point of memorization, Emperor Liang naturally recognized those 2 girls. One was named Wuyan Guang, who named herself the Great Liao's #1 martial general. The other was He Chongbao. 2. She was capable of using magic unknown to gods or devils. When the Great Liao originally invaded the Azure Dragon, The extraordinarily remarkable powers of these three girls made the Azure Dragon Territory's cultivators helpless in the face of a crisis. The girls' immortal and indestructible three bodies in the end could only be sealed into the along the river during Qingming by relying on the powers of 100 Supervoid cultivators. It was precisely because of that calamity before the dawn of time that Supervoid cultivators would fade from this world, becoming increasingly weak. The three emerged, and the Crystal Dragon Palace was deathly silent. The prehistoric Liao Emperor, how is this possible? Xu Xindao was slightly shocked. This situation had changed too drastically. They had just been guessing the plan of the ones that stole the along the river during Qingming. Who would have thought that in just several days, the prehistoric Liao Emperor would already emerge? Yelü Hui closed the scroll. She had a docile, harmless appearance. Her face wore a smile as she looked around at Grandfather Li and the others. Was it you that released us? Your servant Taiyi greets the great king. Grandfather Li and the others announced themselves. How many years have passed? Yelü Hui asked. Liao Emperor, you have been sealed in the along the river during Qingming for almost 1,000 years. What a surprise so long. The girl hummed. Great king. This place looks to be very lively. Wuyan Guang licked her lips, currently worried that her lips were chapped. She looked at the massive crystal palace and the millions of cultivators with a savage grin, as if she was about to gorge herself on blood. As the great Liao's #1 great general, the stench of blood billowed from her head to toe, making her surroundings fall into a malevolent ocean of blood. This place is the Crystal Dragon Palace, currently holding its treasure banquet that occurs once every 50 years. The Azure Dragon Territory's strongest cultivators are practically all here. Grandfather Li smiled wholeheartedly, completely like a kindly old man. But every word he said, every sentence made the Azure Dragon cultivators' whole bodies shudder, extremely frightened. You truly are considerate. Yelü Hui benevolently smiled. She swept her gaze all around. Those eyes immediately saw through the Crystal Dragon Palace. Only so few Azure Dragon cultivators? Emperor Liang, immortal outside heaven, Xu Xindao, and the Supervoid peak cultivators were pale, dripping in cold sweat. Your Highness, fellows, what are you all afraid of? This Liao Emperor has been refined in the along the river during Qingming for 1,000 years. There is no need to fear her now. She is no more than a girl fresh off the teat. A Supervoid early-stage scattered cultivator arrogantly shouted, immediately showing contempt when he saw that Emperor Liang and the others were surprisingly stretched as taut as bowstrings. This scattered cultivator yelled, and put his palms together. 55 wide black iron swords appeared, turned into rainbow light and swiftly slashed. Do not be reckless. Immortal outside heaven was startled and hastily called out to stop him. But she was already too late. It happened in an instant. The Supervoid early-stage scattered cultivator's sword array had barely taken shape. This young and vigorous man still maintained a perfect defensive stance. In the blink of an eye, accompanied by the muffled thud of his heart being run through, everyone nevertheless suddenly noticed that Wuyan Guang was already standing beside the man. They were shoulder to shoulder, his blood splattering about. An alloy-tipped spear directly pierced through the Supervoid cultivator's various defensive magic weapons. Then, while he was still talking big, it impaled his innards. The cultivator's eyes widened. He hung on the spear's tip like a scrap of paper fluttering in the wind. He whimpered a few times, and his eyes finally dimmed. He was still. Instant kill. Everyone choked. They did not dare imagine that a Supervoid cultivator would surprisingly be killed in a single instant. Cultivators are still so weak. Wuyan Guang sneered, throwing the corpse away. And how will you manage against this king this time around? Yelü Hui played with a strand of hair that lay across her chest. Take advantage of the fact that the Liao Emperor has yet to recover after emerging from her seal. Everyone, we ask that you set aside your grudges and unite in the Azure Dragon Territory's moment of crisis. No eggs stay intact under an overturned nest. Emperor Liang shouted. His voice was like a booming bell, shaking the Crystal Palace. The Emperor of the Great Liang released his true dragon Imperial Qi. In a split second, a 9-talon golden dragon took shape from nothingness. Immortal outside heaven, Xu Xindao, Long Wanxin and the other Supervoid peak cultivators each nodded and used their strongest abilities. Just at this moment, an enormous boom practically shattered the Crystal Dragon Palace's barrier. The seawater outside the palace rolled. A corner of the Crystal Dragon Palace suddenly split with innumerable cracks. Then streams of flaming lava spewed out, forming spectacular fire dragons. A faint wind rolled in several kilometers, making everyone gasp. A powerful force rose from the ground, seemingly about to pulverize the Crystal Dragon Palace. Emperor Liang, the Liao Emperor, and others suddenly froze. They heard a frighteningly forceful voice come suddenly from within the flames. Earth Rank Technique. Heaven Falls Earth Rends. Fiery Thunderbolt Qin Mingyue was injured by the Heaven-Earth Dark Yellow of the Xie Twin Heavenly Stars. The twins each dashed, tacitly using their dark rank in preparation to crush the Five Tigers General. Qin Mingyue's face was a complete red. Her hands tightly gripped the Wolf Fang Fire Beacon Mace, and a red star crest glimmered on her forehead. Her pupils were brilliant as gems. At this juncture, she used her dark rank, Heaven Falls Earth Rends. With Qin Mingyue as the center, a range of several kilometers was disintegrated by her mace. Lava and fire dragons gushed out, surrounding the Xie twins. Instantly there was an explosion. Lady Snake Scorpion was pale from shock. She promptly raised the Stars Falling Dragon sword to resolve a portion of the force, quelling the flames. Savage Star Xie Diao and Crying Star Xie Chan were already covered in cuts and bruises. They even had to rely on sacrificing their star beast's green-scaled unicorn python and devouring infant in order to avoid this disaster. Qin Mingyue gasped for breath. The little lowly's tiny hands that held her massive mace were already quivering, but her eyes were full of determination. Snake Scorpion Beauty's kiss was taking effect in Qin Mingyue's body, making the little lowly suffer unbearably. Die. Xie Diao and Xie Chan suddenly pounced. A shadow quickly flashed by Qin Mingyue's side, taking her away at the last moment. The Xie twins gnashed their teeth, thinking of running. They waved their hands, throwing out 5-star destined weapons. Several bangs. In midair, a staff swept them down. Little sisters, you honestly are like snakes and scorpions in mind. 9 tattooed dragons Shi Jingluan rode atop her single-horned Pishio beast. High above, she hung an indifferent smile upon her face, wielding the yellow dragon staff in one hand. Minute Star. Xie Chan ground her teeth. Courting Death, Dark Technique, Provoke Bees Vex Scorpions. The golden scorpion fine rain needles flew out, becoming a stream of golden lights. Humph. Shi Jingluan snorted disdainfully. The single-horned Pishio beast furiously roared, shaking out an astral wave that blocked the dark technique. 9 tattooed dragons flashed away, descending in front of Xie Chan. Little sister, be careful. Xie Diao shouted. Her bamboo viper gloom blade hissed toward Shi Jingluan. The yellow dragon staff transformed into a dragon phantom that pounced on Xie Chan. The girl was wounded yet used a dark technique. She had no leeway to defend against this. Shi Jiuling's yellow dragon worships heaven directly struck Xie Chan. Then her staff technique swept as fast as lightning, beating Xie Chan into the star nest. Little sister. Xie Diao turned pale. Shi Jingluan whirled around. Her footwork changed, and then she slashed at Xie Diao. Xie Diao was far more composed than her little sister. She had already prepared to use the bamboo viper green gloom edge to block. The single-horned Pishio beast to the side roared to shake her off. Savage Star's hands came together, and the bamboo viper green gloom edge suddenly manifested a viper's phantom. Instantly, 9 tattooed dragons and her star beast were surrounded. This was precisely a dark technique. Long Serpent Big Boar. 5. Elder sister, are you alright? Wang Jingji looked at Qin Mingyue and hastily asked. Qin Mingyue was heavily injured, her expression becoming increasingly pale. I shall bring elder sister to go see big sister Qingxi. Wang Jingji grabbed Qin Mingyue and teleported. Qin Mingyue, Shi Jingluan, and the Xie twins' battle was no more than a few moments, but this nevertheless made everyone in the Crystal Dragon Palace hold their breath for a moment. That vast Heaven Falls Earth Rends practically was about to crumble the Crystal Dragon Palace. Some cultivators had begun to flee in fright. Yelü spotted them, showing an odd expression. Who are they? Yelü Hui's brows slightly wrinkled. She surprisingly sensed the same kind of aura that she had. Grandfatherly took the opportunity to inform Yelü Hui the whole story. Star generals? Yelü Hui looked at the star maidens, and the creases in her brow became apparently even deeper. Taiyi. At this time, Lady Snake Scorpion and the Holy Lord of Draconic Demon rushed to his side, their expressions astonished and full of caution. They had yet to decide their position on this legendary Liao Emperor. Great King, in this treasure banquet, our 3 territories have not only united to massacre the Azure Dragon, we also wish to topple Maiden Mountain. Song Feng reverently said. What does the Great King think? Yelü Hui gazed at Li Xiangfei and the other star generals. Then, she glanced at He Chongbao. A strange luster flashed past her eyes and she struck her palm, saying good good good. Then she said, You have spoken very well. This king shall ponder about Maiden Mountain's barrier. At that time, you will accompany this king together to attack Maiden Mountain. Pausing, Yelü Hui looked around the whole Crystal Dragon Palace. She suddenly smiled. Can the star generals of Maiden Mountain present here hear me? If you are willing to follow this king in attacking Maiden Mountain, then join this king's faction. This king treats everyone favorably, without exception. If you wish to be enemies, then do not blame this king for being merciless. The originally restless star masters were suddenly somewhat hesitant upon hearing this. Guang, let them know of this king's might. Yelü Hui slightly smiled. As you command. Wuyan Guang smiled broadly. With spear in hand, she suddenly rushed towards Xu Xindao. Xu Xindao raised the yellow springs brush, madly writing calligraphy in his hands. The calligraphy attacked Wuyan Guang, as if they were substantive. Each brush stroke contained Xu Xindao's Supervoid peak power. The characters were comparable to a few dozen magic weapons, but this calligraphy melted away like snow upon touching Wuyan Guang's 3-layered armor. Watch this. Wuyan Guang grinned, and her spear twisted. Xu Xindao was surprised. He promptly wanted to escape, but Wuyan Guang's spear was honestly too fast. Instantly, it twisted in front of his face. The yellow springs brush and calligraphy were the first to be ground to pieces. Then the spear slashed. Emperor Liang and Immortal Outside Heaven wanted to save him, but the shaking of Wuyan Guang's spear nevertheless left the two of them with no way to get close. Quickly used the tree Clarities banner to save him. By the time she spoke, the great Liao's #1 fierce general showed 2 beast-like fangs. Her spear stabbed directly towards the lifeless Hall's #1 ancestor, Xu Xindao. Xu Xindao's face was ashen in despair. Just as Wuyan Guang's spear was about to cut down Xu Xindao, against a transforming star of annihilation level martial general in close range, even a Supervoid peak cultivator would be unable to last. It was just at this critical moment that 3 rays of jadeite hidden weapons flew over with a sonic boom. After 3 bangs, they struck against the spear. The hidden weapons wrapped in powerful force then pushed back the spear. Only then did Xu Xindao escape from under her spear, avoiding this disaster. Wuyan Guang was surprised. She gloomily looked at the young girl who interrupted her attack. Zhang Biluo coldly stared back at her, not at all swayed by her opponent's frightening aura. Her fingers parted, and 8 rhomboid jadeite concealed weapons wound around her fingertips. #1 fierce general of the great Liao, let us see what you can do. Yin Wudao sneered. He brought out the 6 paths plate, striking with several rays of black light. When the black light slammed onto Wuyan Guang, it was immediately devoured by the sea of blood surrounding her body. This powerful prehistoric spirit treasure was surprisingly completely ineffective against her. Jadeite hidden weapons? Is it that Maiden Mountain Agile star? Wuyan Guang's eyebrows rose, showing a cruel grin. I shall take you as tribute for the great king leaving seclusion. The sea of blood suddenly lowered, its speed beyond normal limits. A sharp white ray attacked in right before Zhang Biluo's eyes. Zhang Biluo faded into nothingness. Using her innate skill, gods appear, devils vanish. Wuyan Guang sneered. She suddenly thrust her spear. The air immediately blossomed with an elegant splatter of blood. Zhang Biluo groaned as she was cut out of her invisibility. The girl flexed her fingers and used her dark technique. Hell has no road. 8 asking directions to the underworld stone slammed into Wuyan Guang's 3-layered armor. The northern Liao's #1 fierce general was completely unmoved, like a boulder. Her body merely rocked gently. Sword array. Yan Wudao activated his sword array. At the same time, the Shu Xindao who escaped with his life swiftly used his most powerful sword array. His flying swords divided into 4, then 4 into 8, combining into an arc of light. In a rush to die? Wuyan Guang was furious. Her powerful aura shook for several miles. Everyone shuddered. Even someone as powerful as Emperor Liang felt the pressure. Then there was a magnificent arc. The sword array Shu Xindao had hastily used to provide support was surprisingly destroyed in one blow. Following that, killing intent that toppled mountains and overturned seas pressed in. Shu Xindao's eyes widened. He unexpectedly felt that he had sunk into the ocean, powerless to struggle. Bang! The killing intent engulfed Shu Xindao. From this lifeless Hull's Supervoid late-stage ancestor was immediately destroyed, with no body to bury. Ancestral Master. Yan Wudao was pale. Before he could feel regret, Wuyan Guang's true attack was carried out. Her killing intent covered him, and the girl was already in front of Yan Wudao a split second later, attacking at the same time. The presence of the powerful martial general nearly made Yan Wudao choke. For the first time, a sort of fear rose in his heart. Was this a transforming star of annihilation general? Yan Wudao saw the glinting cold light of the spear was about to smother him. Wudao! Zhang Biluo screamed. Her green figure leapt in front of him. This slash directly cut into her back. The girl vomited blood. Biluo. Yan Wudao's face once again chilled. Hugging Zhang Biluo, he fled several hundred meters away. Zhang Biluo's clothes were bloody, her breathing ragged. Return to the star nest. Yan Wudao did not hesitate to order her. Wudao, be careful. Zhang Biluo left behind one pale worry, and then vanished from sight. She disappeared? Wuyan Guang said in astonishment. Yan Wudao stared straight at Wuyan Guang. His expression that was cold as a knife showed slight enmity. Northern darkness has fish. Why did you not use the 3 Clarities banner to save Shu Xindao? Immortal outside heaven icily spat each word. If Northern darkness has fish had used the 3 Clarities banner just now, he could have still rescued Shu Xindao, but for some reason, after the Liao Emperor appeared, Northern darkness has fish had maintained an unsteady expression, as if he was hesitating over something. This made Immortal outside heaven considerably enraged. Northern darkness has fish was silent, his eyes full of gloom. Northern darkness has fish. If you do not wish to ruin the illustrious name of the Most High Path for generations, then set aside your grudges for now. Emperor Liang coldly said. How could he not see what Northern darkness has fish was thinking about? Today is the day the Azure Dragon territory is destroyed. The Azure Dragon territory has dominated the star duels for 8 generations. Now the time has come for a transition of power. Songfeng clearly said. Every one of his words held a forceful pressure. Those galaxy and other cultivators could only feel powerless to resist. Following Songfeng finishing his speech, the other White Tiger 7 spirit stars flew to his side, each revealing their star general, a very spectacular sight. Besides the White Tiger 7 spirit stars, the Black Turtle Territory's Holy Lord of Draconic Demon, and the Vermilion Bird Territory's Lady Snake Scorpion were present. Do the Azure Dragon Territory's Star Masters dare fight a war? Sergio Ng mercilessly laughed. The Azure Dragon Territory could be said to be looking at each other in dismay. The Star Masters with the greatest qualifications were considered Xie Zhenyuan and Zhao Hanyan, but looking around at everyone present, there was surprisingly no trace of either of the two. That left the Azure Dragon Territory's next-in-line Star Master as Yan Wudao. He was righteous and severe, but Featherless Arrow had been cut down into the star nest by Wuyan Guang. Even the Star General Agile Star Zhongqing, who was #1 in concealed weapons, was defeated. The other Star Masters did not dare utter a word. At this moment, the people remaining suddenly recalled one other person. A man who overturned heaven and earth in the Azure Dragon Territory, who overturned the rivers and seas, who fought against a crazy tide in the Vermilion Bird Territory. The Purple Thunder Monster. And he had another nickname, the Purple Thunder Saint. Northern Darkness has Fish loudly and clearly shouted. Purple Thunder Monster, if you act against the 3 territories now, this ancestor shall immediately write off our grudge. Everyone else was cried out in relief upon hearing this. But no one responded. Northern Darkness has Fish had wanted to take advantage of this chance to draw out the Purple Thunder Monster and his numerous star generals. Then, he would use the connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls to seal and kill him, but he continued to wait for a response to no avail, which slightly puzzled him. Just at this moment, a rumbling cave-in occurred in an area of the Crystal Palace. A gorgeous pavilion toppled, and a graceful chant suddenly emerged from the strange lights that covered the skies. 8 gates black gold chain, dark rank technique, bind silk before rain. A beautiful girl of graceful physique pointed her finger. Bizarre dark gold chains of light wound closely in space. Young Zijin raised her extreme vast blue emperor saber. Her swordsmanship was breathtaking beyond compare. Ray after ray of blue saber light cut against the unending chains. Wu Xingjia's bind silk before rain made wherever Yang Zijin stood seem like a prison. The chains appeared in every position with unpredictable speed and angles. If it was not for Yang Zijin's superb realm, her surly saber technique that had been passed on over generations, perhaps she would need only a few seconds to be bound to death by the 8 gates black gold chains. With a clanging noise, Yang Zijin seized upon a fleeting gap in coverage. She flashed away in that instant the moment the 8 gates black gold chain appeared, finally withdrawing from the dead zone. Bind silk before rain came to an abrupt end. Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw those chains. Were those not the knowledge star resourceful star Wuyang's second destined star weapon? In that battle, there were more figures. This meant that the Purple Thunder Monster had already begun battle. Since you are not willing to submit, then do not blame this king for being merciless. Yelü courteously smiled. This palace actually wants to see whether or not the connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls can take you. Long Wanxin sneered. She said to Northern Darkness has Fish. Northern Darkness, now that the Liao Emperor has appeared, Wanxin will need those 12 connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls back for the time being. When Northern Darkness has Fish saw that she wanted to use the connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls, he knew that he could no longer hesitate. Regardless of just where the Purple Thunder Monster was, since his knowledge star was here, he must inevitably be snooping around in the shadows. Northern Darkness has Fish nodded. He closed his eyes, and his most high jade clarity flying swords formed a sword array. Northern Darkness has Fish began to form hand seals and chant an incantation. The skillful masters of old, with a subtle and exquisite penetration, comprehended its mysteries, and were deep so as to elude men's knowledge. As they were thus beyond men's knowledge, I will make an effort to describe of what sort they appeared to be, shrinking like those who wade through a stream in winter, irresolute like those who are afraid of all around them, awestruck like a guest, evanescent like ice melting away, unpretentious like wood that has not been fashioned into anything, vacant like a valley, and dull like muddy water. Too, upon hearing this incantation, her face suddenly changed. Is this not the incantation for the 24 connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls? Prehistoric spirit treasures often had no restrictions for use, but there were some treasures that required an incantation to control. For example, the treasure bowl, soul summoning banner, and the heaven-connecting ocean settling pearls were like this. With just half of the connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls, the other 12 could be controlled as well. It was because of this that Long Wanxin had no misgivings lending them out. So long as she had that incantation, she was not afraid of not retrieving them. But she had never thought that Northern Darkness has Fish would suddenly chant the incantation to the connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls. For a palace guarding treasure like this, the Crystal Dragon Palace closely guarded the psychic incantation. Only the Imperial Empress of each generation knew of it. Long Wanxin did not know how he knew of it. For a time, she was somewhat at a loss. Northern Darkness, what is the meaning of this? That state of vacancy should be brought to the utmost degree, and that of stillness guarded with untiring vigor. All things alike go through their processes of activity, and we see them return to their original form. When things have displayed their luxuriant growth, we see each of them return to their roots. This returning to their root is what we call the state of stillness. And that stillness may be called a reporting that they have fulfilled their appointed end. The report of that fulfillment is the regular, unchanging rule. To know that unchanging rule is to be intelligent. Not to know it leads to wild movements and evil issues. The knowledge of that unchanging rule produces a capacity and forbearance, and that capacity and forbearance lead to a community of empathy. From this community of empathy comes a kingliness of character. And he who is king-like goes on to be heaven-like. In that likeness to heaven he possesses the Tao. Possessed of the Tao, he endures long, and to the end of his bodily life, is exempt from all danger of decay. Following the end of the incantation, the crystal dragon palace suddenly glowed brilliantly. All around the palace, 12 resplendent pearls as vast as the sun and moon hovered high above, releasing azure light. These light rays combined into one ray, merging with each other, like an immense honeycomb, but some were missing, which felt somewhat regrettable. Northern Darkness has Fish then raised the 12 connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls in his hand. These 12 pearls rocketed into the sky, expanding suddenly and embedded themselves among the others. In a split second, the crystal dragon palace was enveloped in a barrier thin as a cicada's wing. The crystal dragon palace inherently had a barrier to keep out the fathoms of deep sea. This was nothing unusual to everyone, but they felt that those lens-like rhomboid barriers were releasing a somewhat unsettling pressure. Strange, there seems to be no air. It's true. What is happening? How have those ruins and dust just froze there? Everyone suddenly noticed that the atmosphere was slightly different. The collapsed palace, the disturbed dust, and the slight airflow had all unexpectedly frozen midair. Ocean settling barrier. Emperor Liang's tone sunk. He discerned that the crystal dragon palace had already become a cage, with no one allowed to enter or exit. Northern Darkness has Fish. What are you doing? Long Wanqin shouted, pale. Northern Darkness has Fish slowly opened his eyes. He expressionlessly glanced at Long Wanqin. He then waved his sleeve and rushed towards the Liao Emperor. Wuyan Guang had thought to slay him, but Yelü Hui's expression hinted to her. Thus she stayed her hand. Everyone had thought that the Most High Path's #1 ancestor was staking his life against the Liao Emperor, and they charged together in a fervor. Northern Darkness has Fish was halfway there when he suddenly felt his whole body be restricted by a sort of pressure. He raised his head to see He Chongbao was using magic. He was inwardly astonished. He was surprisingly unable to break free even with his Supervoid peak cultivation. This power really was the legendary transforming star of annihilation. As he was inwardly afraid, Northern Darkness has Fish bowed his head in even greater deference. Your servant Northern Darkness has Fish is willing to join your Majesty Liao Emperor. Boom. The crystal dragon palace sunk into a deathly stillness that was even more terrifying than the ocean settling barrier. The tens of thousands of cultivators were dumbstruck. They did not dare believe the sight they saw before them. The #1 ancestral master of the Azure Dragon Territory's #1 sect, the Most High Path, had unexpectedly defected. Northern Darkness has Fish. How can you just submit to one sorcerer, to just capitulate? Long Wanqin furiously shouted. A fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. Fellows, there is no need to persist in your wrong ways. Northern Darkness has Fish matter-of-factly said. Immortal outside heaven jeered. Northern Darkness has Fish. Fancy that you took rash action as the head of the Most High Path. Today, the Most High Path's generations of repute have been buried by your hand. When 3 of Has Fish's junior brothers died to the Purple Thunder monster, the Most High Path was already that in name only. Immortal outside heaven, in your current righteousness, how can you know your servant's feelings? Profound hatred appeared in Northern Darkness has Fish's eyes. To be able to make the #1 ancestor of the Most High Path who practiced the Most High indifference feel this, it was obvious he already hated the Purple Thunder monster to the bone. Senior brother Northern Darkness, you absolutely cannot be confused in the heat of the moment. Long Wanqin called out. Long Wanqin, the one who is confused is you. Emperor Liang sneered. Did you think he would let us live? By the time every cultivator in the barrier was dead, no one would have known anything had happened. Emperor Liang could imagine that Northern Darkness has Fish would seize the opportunity to declare himself number one, to once again rouse the most high path's might. Northern Darkness has Fish chuckled. Evidently, it was as Emperor Liang had anticipated. Long Wanqin's complexion was frosty. If you are finished chatting, is it not about time to offer tribute? Yelü Hui, the corner of her lips curled in a smile. We actually would like to see what capabilities you have. Emperor Liang's divine intent moved. The 72 outer void flying immortals' swords split into 72 absolutely beautiful immortals. These wonderful fairies held blades in their hands, raising a graceful sword dance in midair. Their apparently agile and relaxed movements nevertheless emitted a mountain-toppling sword chi. I shall assist you. Immortal outside heaven shouted, similarly using her own 72 Udi void flying immortal swords. Her sword chant was renowned as number one in the true immortal hall, and even Emperor Liang could not compare. Her 72 flying swords had already reached the true spirit realm. Fairies that were far more beautiful than Emperor Liang's flying swords were like swords. Their delicate fingers waved swords with a heaven-shaking sword chi. Two excellent Supervoid cultivators released the 72 outer void flying immortals, swords they had cultivated to true spirit at full power. In a split second, the Crystal Dragon Palace's skies were fluttering with more than 100 true immortals in beautiful dance. This apparently absolutely beautiful scene was moving beyond description. The 100 true spirit immortals attacked at the same time. The killing intent of the flying swords shook the Crystal Dragon Palace like heaven-flooding tsunami, and the other lower cultivation, even the supercluster ancestors, people could only barely resist. A clear dragon cry suddenly sounded out. Among the frenzy of the 144 true immortals, there were suddenly hundreds of swarming water dragons. These dragons had a vaguely visible blue flying sword body, but their shape was that of a 100 chi dragon. The dragon scales covering their whole bodies glinted with blue light. Similarly not to be underestimated. Northern Darkness has Fish, you have made Wanqin very disappointed. Long Wanqin shouted. This was none other than her supreme greatsword chant 5 Lakes Dragon Roar 4 Seas Heaven Splitting Sword. 2. What a powerful sword chant, is this a real peak cultivator? Shi watched this breathtaking scene in awe, speechless. The powerful sword chi that the flying swords emitted practically made the similarly supervoid Shi feel stunned. Unlike star masters that relied on their star energy to reach instant success, whose cultivation could reach peak state in a few short years, Liangshan Continent's other cultivators were required to waste enormous effort in order to train and cultivate. It was precisely because of this reason that cultivators who could reach Supervoid peak often cultivated their flying swords to frightening realms over many years. Cultivators that reached this realm needed only their sword chant to be able to stand arrogant and proud. Sword chants are actually more interesting than before. Wuyan Guang laughed and advanced. The true spirit heavenly immortals and the 100 water dragons intermingled. If it was any other person, they perhaps would have long already been completely destroyed by these flying swords. But after Wuyan Guang laughed aloud, the spear in her hand appeared fearless. The spear slashed out a waterfall like cold light. The true spirit fairies and the water dragon barely withstood this exchange before being repelled. Outer void flying immortals sword array. 5 Lakes 4 Seas sword array. Emperor Liang and the other two formed hand seals and activated sword arrays. The other cultivators present all used their flying sword abilities to provide assistance. Very quickly, several thousand flying swords flew about and whipped towards the Liao Emperor. Only this level of power? Yelü Hui shook her head. The expressionless girl He Chongbao behind her extended her hand. A blood-colored rune formed into a profound array. Then, the rune spun about and fell into the sword arrays. Suddenly, bloody light radiated, and 1,000 bloody chains abruptly shot out and firmly seized all the flying swords. The 1,000 flying swords cried out incessantly in midair, surprisingly unable to budge after being frozen by the rune. Emperor Liang and the others urged on all of their magic energy, but the absolute heavenly immortals could only futilely struggle. What powerful magic! Emperor Liang's heart sank. He once again formed a hand seal. The The true dragon imperial chi coiling around his body formed an enormous 5-clawed true dragon. The true dragon roared, and yellow light filled the sky, suddenly shattering the blood chains. True dragon imperial chi was Emperor Liang's most powerful ability. For Emperor Liang to rely on brute force to bring the imperial family to the summit of the Azure Dragon territory, other than his strategies, using the imperial family's true dragon chi to produce a unique ability was another important reason. He Chongbao's eyes let out a cold glint. Her body shuddered, and 12 blood shadows swiftly flew out. The world was a thorough red, enshrouded in a blood-colored light. The 12 blood shadows turned their terrible steaming chi into demons that menacingly surrounded the true dragon, constricting it. Then He Chongbao pointed her finger again. An enormous and complex array was erected in midair. The freed flying swords were immediately locked outside. Upon seeing Emperor Liang's powers that were unrivaled in Liangshan were unable to break through, Immortal Outside Heaven, Long Wanqin, and the other cultivators hurriedly activated magic weapons. A rainbow bandage flew out from Immortal Outside Heaven's sleeve. This rainbow gauze expanded, forming a rainbow canopy. The multicolored light attacked the blood shadows. Long Wanqin's mouth read an incantation, and she tossed out the hairpin in her hand. Then she pointed, and that white jade hairpin became a half-black, half-white light ray several chi long. It flew towards Wuyan Guang. This heavenly rainbow bandage and jade lightsword hairpin were the most capable magic weapons these two possessed. However, top-notch cultivators like them already had no need to rely on magic weapons. Although the magic weapons they activated were not comparable to the Spirit Sealing List's Great 10 Spirit Treasures, by relying on their innate magic energy, they could still be surly. The heavenly rainbow bandage and the jade lightsword hairpin were rolled away by 2 rays of clear chi. Raising their heads to look, Northern Darkness has Fish shook the 3 Clarities banner. This banner was the size of his palm, with eccentric characters composed upon it, showing extreme clarity, jade clarity, and high clarity. The 3 Clarities immortal light. Extreme clarity could stall magic weapons, jade clarity could break abilities, and high clarity could capture souls. The 3 Clarities combined into their original form could even produce projections, which could be said to be supreme. Northern Darkness has Fish, have you truly resolved yourself to be the Liao Emperor's lackey? Long Wanqin shouted in disappointment. Could it be you truly plan to kill everyone here? Long Wanqin, 100 Supervoid cultivators back then could not handle the Liao Emperor. Do you believe that just a few of us can resist just as well? Northern Darkness has Fish coldly answered. The Liao Emperor has just emerged from her seal. And you saw how Xu Xindao was killed in one blow by Wuyan Guang. With things as they stand, do you still not understand the situation? Idiot, you think that the Liao Emperor will let you go? Immortal Outside Heaven disdainfully sneered. Northern Darkness has Fish shuddered from head to toe. Without saying another word, the 3 Clarities flag shook out the extreme clarity immortal light. Despite her feelings, upon seeing him put himself in a dead end, Long Wanqin was furious again. She used heavenly water divine thunder. This thunder was obtained from the heavenly water volume of the 5 spirits heavenly book's water spirit book. Its might could not be underestimated. You can all die. Wuyan Guang attacked at this moment. Her spearhead glinted and then slashed. Your high cultivation is not bad, but this fairy does not fear you. Immortal Outside Heaven was cold as frost, unyielding. The outer void flying immortal swords combined into one and caught Wuyan Guang's spear. The 2 weapons clashed, exploding with glaring light, just like a small sun suddenly igniting. Immortal Outside Heaven's body sunk, and her whole body went numb. Her body was nearly unsteady. In her heart, she was overwhelmed at her opponent's terrifying martial force. This slash's power drained her. She immediately recoiled back from the strong light. A blue ray shot out from the light, directly flying towards Immortal Outside Heaven's head. Immortal Outside Heaven was too late to dodge, and her shoulder was cut into by Wuyan Guang's spear. With a ripping sound, Immortal Outside Heaven's Nikhang heavenly feather rainbow raiment was torn to shreds, disintegrating. This magic weapon was slashed apart by Wuyan Guang's spear. A hole was gouged out of her shoulder's flesh. Blood flowed out directly, painful enough to make immortal outside heaven grit her teeth. Guang nevertheless flashed to immortal outside heaven's front. The true immortal hall's #1 cultivator lost her color. She did not expect her opponent's realm to be formidable to such a degree. Her Supervoid peak-level divine intent was far inferior. The second spear attack once again slashed into her other shoulder. Her snow-white shoulders showed wounds. That Nikhang heavenly feather rainbow raiment was completely shredded. The 72 heavenly immortals clustered over. Immortal outside heaven tried to retreat, but she had retreated only 100 steps when the 72 outer void flying immortals' swords were all completely slain by Guang. The great Liao Emperor's #1 fierce general charged. Her spear directly thrust. Just as the beauty was about to die, just at this moment, a sword light of flowing water flew over and constricted Guang's spear attack. This flowing sword light spun, making Guang's spear stagnate for half a second. And it was precisely this half-second that allowed immortal outside heaven to escape. Guang gasped in astonishment. The girl already slashed downwards. The sword wind was chilling, a splashing dragon cry and waterfall. Guang held her arm horizontally, beating back her opponent. Two girls descended in front of her. Senior immortal outside heaven, are you all right? Long Nu's brows were locked tight as she stared at Guang. Thanks. Immortal outside heaven nodded. Star General? Explain why you Star Generals would appear in this place? Could it be because of the Great King? Guang said thoughtfully. Who even knows who any of you are? Huang Mingrue chuckled. Maiden Mountain has vowed ever since the Star Duels began that whoever meddles in the Star Duels will be punished severely. If you truly wish to know, then come test it. Long Nu calmly provoked. Guang's eyes released a peculiar luster. Maiden Mountain? There just happens to be no one who is a match here. This general actually wants to see what abilities Maiden Mountain has. Guang disdained Maiden Mountain as beneath her. She thrust out her spear. Huang Mingrue rode upon Terrible Leg, and waved her sword to block. After several bouts, Huang Mingrue showed signs of defeat. Seeing that she was not a match, Long Nu became slightly anxious. It seems that Maiden Mountain is no more than trash, just like that Empress Huidi. Guang sneered. Before she finished speaking, suddenly, a 3-inch tall exquisite pagoda suddenly appeared. Rising into the air, it was then as big as a mountain. Altogether it had 9 stories. The moment it was in midair, exquisite treasure light radiated, enveloping Huang Mingrue and the others within. Even Guang was unable to break through it. The pagoda released treasure light, dignified and brilliant. Surprisingly, it simultaneously shook He Chongbao's bloodlight and Emperor Liang's true dragon. Long Nu's heart breathed a sigh of relief. A 9-story pagoda, the Heaven-Earth Dark Yellow. This was none other than Thousand Buddha Star Chaogai's Heaven-Earth Dark Yellow Thousand Pagoda. Is it really all right for us to not make a move? Mu Wuyu and Mu Huiyu simultaneously turned their heads back. Xuanla Feifei's delicate finger twirled a lock of her black hair. She looked at the chaotic battlefield. The prehistoric Liao Emperor Yelü Hui's abrupt rebirth indeed made Fairy Xuanla quite surprised. Just how powerful the legendary transforming star of Annihilation realm was, Xuanla Feifei did not know. But she nevertheless could discern that the Yelü Hui, Guang and He Chongbao before her eyes absolutely were not as simple as transforming star of Annihilation stage. That sort of feeling was just like, a Star General. We are not a match. Xuanla Feifei shook her head. Although she was unwilling, it was necessary to concede this fact in front of them. The #1 Martial General Guang's martial arts were outstanding. Even the Mu assassins would be hard-pressed to find an advantage in close range, and that Yelü Gui and He Chongbao watched like tigers. A rash attack would instead ruin their lives. To be able to shine above the rest in the Star Duels, what Xuanla Feifei relied on was precisely her shrewd ability to evaluate the situation. Let alone that only Chaogai is capable of handling this Liao Emperor. Perhaps even she is no match. This fairy wonders what that Maiden Mountain will do. We are no more than traces of true spirit, and we have our own mission. For now, we shall monitor the situation, Xuanla Feifei emotionlessly said. Mu Wuyu and Mu Huiyu were a bit reluctant. Xuanla Feifei turned her head back to Mu Qingying and Mu Duang, saying, "Both of you sisters watch carefully. This is an extremely rare opportunity. As assassins, the most important thing is to completely understand the capabilities of your assassination target. When the 3 territory Star Masters make their move, the victor will inevitably be king. If you can grasp their combat details, this will be an absolute help in your future assassinations." Bing Qingxian cupped his fist and reverently thanked her. Was Chao Gai not admonishing us to not meddle in others' business? Why not listen to her this time? Xuanla Feifei ruthlessly smiled. The heaven-earth dark yellow thousand pagoda appeared, radiating Buddhist light, temporarily suppressing the arrogance of both sides. Very quickly, a beautiful girl appeared in the yellow light. She was none other than Thousand Buddha Star Chao Gai. Yelü Hui. If you meddle in the star duels, this one absolutely will not tolerate you. Quickly stop this at once. Chao Gai's tone was strict. On Wu Xinjia's side, blue-faced beast Yang Zijin had already withdrawn to grandfather Li's side to guard him. Wu Xinjia had been knocked back by the power of Yelü Hui's exchange with Emperor Liang and the others, stopping for the moment. Upon seeing Chao Gai appear, Wu Xinjia was not surprised. In fact, even though Long Nu did not attract her attention, hearing Chao Gai's words, the knowledge star still felt a slight change take place. Chao Gai apparently was familiar with the Liao Emperor Yelü Hui. At least she knew of her existence. Her seemingly strict tone nevertheless hid slight astonishment. "Who are you, to unexpectedly dare command the great king?" Wuyan Guang snorted disdainfully, absolutely not placing the thousand Buddha star in her eyes. She raised her spear and attacked. The thousand pagoda's profound light flooded, filling the heavens as a giant net that twisted towards Wuyan Guang. Wuyan Guang violently slashed, yet this was not as relaxed as before. The layers of Buddhist light were like a bog, wrapping around her whole body, preventing her from displaying her full power. The great Liao's #1 martial general was shocked. She knew then that this Chao Gai was powerful. In realm, she was on par, maybe even a level higher than herself. As expected, Maiden Mountain has also come. Wuyan Guang laughed, springing upwards. The spear slashed a ray of light like a galaxy. This magnificent light ray directly slashed. Cultivators in its way were torn to shreds before they could even react. The light extended to the ends of the Crystal Dragon Palace and slammed into the barrier with a rumble. Chao Gai formed a hand seal. The thousand pagoda shot out a ray of yellow light that wrapped around Wuyan Guang and tried to absorb her into the pagoda. He Chongbao read an incantation and used star magic. 100 dazzling runes soared about. The 12 blood shadows became 72 blood fiends in a split second. These blood fiends were dreadful. Cultivators that so much as touched these blood fiends were dead with no body left behind in an instant. The 72 blood fiends devoured the yellow light and freed Wuyan Guang. Then the bloodlight enveloping the Crystal Dragon Palace attacked Chao Gai. Waves of blood rolled along the way, fiendish qi surged. Even the Supervoid cultivators took a few steps back in fear, feeling terrified of the He Chongbao who killed as if human life was like grass. Chao Gai's long hair fluttered. Her hair then turned into a golden color, each strand radiating Buddhist light. A star crest appeared on Chao Gai's forehead, and the heaven-earth dark yellow thousand pagoda hovered above Chao Gai's head, releasing unending light. This brilliant Buddhist magic split off into 144 rays of yellow light. Every 2 rays each seized 1 blood fiend. The 72 blood fiends surrounded Chao Gai, yet they were unable to advance one single step. He Chongbao added more magic energy and battled against Chao Gai's magic. The others were unable to interfere. "Chao Gai, this king asks you, just what are these star duels?" Yelü Hui leisurely asked at this moment. "Why descend into this realm? Could it be because of this king?" "You are Yelü Wuxin?" To Chao Gai was awe-inspiring. "You know this king's true name, huh?" Yelü Wuxin was slightly surprised. How could this one not know? Of Star World's millions of star names, your northern Liao is considered tyrannical. 1,000 years ago, a member of the imperial family named Yelü Wuxin suffered defeat. Afterwards, she took the #1 great general Wuyan Qin III, And the national scholar he bowed and disappeared without a trace. Legend said that they fell to a lower realm. It seems that was true. This lower realm is actually very interesting. Yelü Wuxin did not change her expression. No wonder Liangshan Continent's 100 Supervoid cultivators were all unable to kill you. Chao Gai sneered. Is Star World Empress still that little girl? Chao Gai, you command 108 star generals. You are not managing those 4 great female traitor ministers. Yet here you are in Liangshan Continent playing some Star Duels game. What sort of farce are you putting on here? Yelü Wuxin thoughtfully asked. Chao Gai did not say anything. She fired off killing intent. This one shall ask you once more. Immediately stop interfering with the Star Duels. Otherwise there will be no end to your troubles. No end to my troubles? This king is aware that you all came down from Maiden Mountain. This king just happens to want to properly appreciate you. Yelü Wuxin tore apart her friendliness, and suddenly read an incantation. Her body bubbled with an overwhelming qi. This qi rolled with resplendent golden light, vaguely assuming the form of a true dragon, no different from Emperor Liang's true dragon imperial qi. True dragon qi? Emperor Liang took in a deep breath. It was no wonder that while she was in the along the river during Qingming, using the true dragon imperial qi for 1,000 years was unable to refine away the Liao emperor. As it turned out, she was also of the true dragon bloodline, and similarly refined the true dragon like Emperor Liang did. It is a coincidence. This king was bored in the along the river during Qingming and inadvertently comprehended the true dragon, while inside this profound painting. This king just so happened to want to ascend to Star World and take that empress head. Today this king shall take your head as test lackey. Suddenly Yelü Wuxin thought of something and sneered. Maiden Mountain is star dueling here, could it be this? Saying this, as if subduing all of the crystal dragon palace, 1,000 qi-long 9-clawed true dragon hissed forth. The other cultivators fell to their knees, and even Emperor Liang was stunned. Chao Gai knew its might. Her clothes fluttered, and the 1,000 pagoda protected her, bubbling forth Buddhist light. A golden light rushed around and illuminated the entire palace, like a candle flame in the night. In the Buddhist light, Brahmanistic chanting came with the wind. Several large true bodies emerged from within the Buddhist light. The Akala Wisdom King, the Kundali Wisdom King, the Yamantaka Wisdom King, the Vajrayaksha Wisdom King, the Trailokaya Vijaya Wisdom King, guardian deities of tall and large golden bodies all appeared. They obstructed the horizon, overlooked all beneath them, making a malevolent face, an angry one, a forced smile, a grim face, not one good expression. The Wisdom Kings were wrathful manifestations of Buddhism. They were formed of anger, unable to become merciful bodhisattvas. They could only become Wisdom Kings that protected the law, subduing all evil. Not only this, but other than the Wisdom King law protectors, other Asuras, Vajras, innumerable Buddhas, and thousands of Brahmins chanted. She truly was the 1,000 Buddha star. The grand 1,000 Buddhas thus entangled the 9-clawed true dragon. What a 1,000 Buddha star. However, just you alone, this king honestly is reluctant to kill you. Yelü Wuxin shouted her praise. He Bao and Wu Yanqin immediately joined the battle. Even if Emperor Liang and Wu Xinjie wanted to intercede, they were helpless. This was already more than transforming Star of Annihilation. This completely was a battle that only true Phoenix Realm Star generals could fight. What do we do? Yan Yizhen had brought out the 3 arrows lethal crossbow. The skillful Star wrinkled her brow. This was the first time she had felt stumped. This guardian of the Star Duels Chao Gai seemed to be in trouble. Wu Xinjie shrugged and smiled. Only as a resort should we use the 3 realms immortal movement pendant to save her life. However, before then, we should greet those demonkin. The Knowledge Star gazed at those white tiger 7 spirit stars, and the other star masters of the 3 territories, showing a profound expression. As the Crystal Dragon Palace was in chaos, a reign of terror, there was one place in the palace that nevertheless appeared particularly tranquil. Noble star Little Whirlwind Chai Ling leisurely reclined on a couch. She held Xinger, her beautiful legs were exposed, and she had a carefree appearance. The only thing missing was a musician playing the qin. Regardless of the Liao Emperor's appearance or northern darkness has Fish's betrayal, Chai Ling contrarily appeared very indifferent. Her beautiful red phoenix eyes swept over the crowd. She was originally a bit worried, but after she learned from Shi Yuan that Su Xing had left the Crystal Dragon Palace early, Nobleman Chai was loath to even put on a single gesture of grandeur. As expected, Chao Gai still appeared. However, it seems that she is not powerful at all. Chai Ling wore an arrogant smile. Against the Liao Emperor and her subordinates, it appears Chao Gai is about to be defeated. Konghou sat beside Chai Ling, chugging on a large jug of wine. If there was a plate of food around, this would be a model spectator plot gag. To unexpectedly be able to see someone who can challenge Maiden Mountain, interesting. Konghou was apparently a bit drunk, her cheeks an intoxicated red. These White Tiger 7 Spirit Stars honestly had an exceptional plan. To unexpectedly exploit the Crystal Dragon Palace. To not only convince the Most High Path's #1 ancestral master to defect, but to even unite the star masters of the other 2 territories. If it was not for Xinger, these White Tiger 7 Spirit Stars would inevitably be the overlords of these star duels. Chai Ling praised. Konghou grunted. Perhaps no one would have imagined that the White Tiger territory would produce star masters. Much less imagine a situation where 3 of the territories united, of course. Right, elder sister Konghou? Can you break this barrier? Each of these connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls is considered a prehistoric spirit treasure. 24 is actually a bit of a problem. Konghou shook her head. Then you mean to say that at full power you could break through? Chai Ling asked in amazement. It is possible, however, the Crystal Dragon Palace would suffer a calamity. Everyone else would be buried at sea. Chai Ling originally wanted to rescue a few of the Star Masters, but she could only drop this. However, if that Liao Emperor defeats Chao Gai, Xinger would also be in a bit of trouble. Chai Ling said charmingly. Konghou rolled her eyes. Chai Ling, you should direct your flirtations to that man instead. Your humble servant will not take your bait. This palace is merely feeling injustice on behalf of the sisters, that is all. Chai Ling pet Xinger, as she softly spoke. Your humble servant actually really wants to see Chao Gai flee in defeat. Konghou covered her mouth, her lips curling into a slightly cold curve. Then, what will Maiden Mountain do? Elder sister. However, Konghou stretched her body, her large breasts accentuated, her wonderful curved highlighted. To have Chao Gai flee in defeat ought to be done by your humble servant. Konghou licked her lips, carrying herself a bit drunkenly. Her footsteps appeared somewhat worrisome. But when she took her next step, Konghou had already vanished from Chai Ling's sight. Liao Emperor, you better watch yourself. This palace is suddenly a bit sympathetic towards you. Chai Ling cheerfully said. The heaven-earth dark yellow thousand pagoda emitted a brilliant light, enshrouding Chao Gai within. The Buddhist law protectors and Brahmanistic chanting continued. A giant wisdom king Vajra circled around the light, its hand gripping a devil-subduing artifact. It waved its hand, rolling thunder fire and golden light, intense to the extreme. That thunder, fire, and golden light was even more formidable than the outer void flying immortals' swords. Even the great Liao's #1 Marshal General Wuyan was hard-pressed to approach. He Bauer's blood fiends were occasionally shaken to pieces by those Buddhists. However, every disintegration would create a new one from nothingness, as if they were infinite, which was extremely terrifying. Seeing Wuyan and He Bauer fall into a stalemate, the continually charming and delicate, leisurely Liao Emperor Yelü Wuxin, who had been reading, finally took action. She formed a hand seal, and her body emitted an amber-colored translucent qi. This qi ascended towards the 9 firmaments and descended towards the blue below. The 9-clawed golden dragon formed from true dragon imperial qi was far more mighty than Emperor Liang's. It charged at Chao Gai's 1,000 pagoda, bearing a force powerful enough to make people prostrate in submission. It directly placed itself into the thunder fire and golden light. As if it set off a chain reaction, those thunderfire's explosions were increasingly intense. It jolted the earth and mountains. The Buddhist light was not originally that strong. It could only protect Chao Gai. The 1,000 Buddhas changing incantations covered the entire crystal dragon palace within the glittering Buddhist light. Those Buddhas, Asuras, Wisdom Kings, and Vajras each displayed their own abilities. How could a cultivator compare to this power? Chao Gai's forehead was engraved with a crest, and her long hair fluttered, graceful and imposing. This was the first time in all their lives that the cultivators witnessed a battle of transforming star of annihilation level adepts. Even Emperor Liang had never seen something like this. Everyone was dumbstruck. Ever since the star duels began, cultivators had more or less known of Maiden Mountain's might. But seeing for the first time 1,000 Buddha star Chao Gai take action, they felt this was far more stunning than what they had imagined. With Chao Gai's power, even Emperor Liang and the others united would have difficulty gaining an advantage. If Chao Gai was like this, then what was Maiden Mountain like? Chao Gai's beautiful eyes radiated golden light, glinting Dharma characteristics, a continuous match with auspicious light. But Wuyan Qin, He Chongbao and Yelü Hui had originally descended from Star World. Although their cultivations had greatly diminished, Yelü Wuxin had unintentionally refined true dragon imperial qi in the along the river during Qingming. The three of them worked together, and Chao Gai's expression strained. A more than 100 Zhongtal Law Protector Wisdom King holding a Vajrachan staff was struck in the chest by that 9-clawed golden dragon. It suddenly screamed and faded away into specks of light, vanishing without a trace. Immediately afterwards, Wuyan Qin's 3-layered armor pushed straight through with support from He Baoer's magic, slaying another Wisdom King. The Heaven-Earth Dark Yellow 1,000 Pagoda continuously rocked. The 1,000 Pagoda Law Protectors were nearly about to be disintegrated by the True Dragon's long-range attack. Just as the auspicious light became thinner and thinner, Chao Gai became increasingly anxious. In her worry, her mind surprisingly thought of Su Xing. Who knew from where this man came from? His conduct and deeds were universally shocking. Yet he nevertheless showed enormous promise. The current him was completely capable of helping her face the Liao Emperor. Yet she could not see him right now. Could he be so distrustful of this one? Chao Gai's heart was briefly bitter. Chao Gai, you are unexpectedly distracted. Courting death. As her mind wandered, she suddenly heard Wuyan Qin's sneer. Chao Gai thought to herself, oh no! The 1,000 Buddha's protection already broke. Wuyan Qin raised her spear to attack. That smooth spear launched a bean-sized silver light flashing. It grew dramatically, turning into a twin-headed silver wolf in the blink of an eye. It opened its mouths and spat out whip-like lights. Watch this fierce wolf-devouring moon. The glimmering light shattered, and the spear went directly for Chao Gai. Chao Gai fanned her sleeve, rolling Buddhist magic. The meditative mind lotus flower blossomed in midair, but the spear directly twisted it apart. Just as that double-headed wolf's mouth was about to devour Chao Gai. At this moment, a silhouette suddenly appeared in front of the fierce wolf. The figure spread its arms, grabbed that fierce wolf's mouth, and pulled upwards and downwards in both directions at once. With brute strength alone, the figure unexpectedly ripped the wolf apart. The fierce wolf immediately dissipated. Wuyan Guang was shocked, and she quickly withdrew, staring at the woman in front of her. The woman who appeared had a wonderful figure, graceful curves and beautiful lines. A pair of languid, clear pupils flickered with a kingly dignity. She was none other than Konghou. Who are you? Rarely did Wuyan Qin's expression stretch taut, and her hands could not help but grip tighter. In that instant's exchange just now, she clearly sensed the overwhelming martial arts of her opponent. This was the first time she had ever felt a sensation of powerlessness. You. Chao Gai also showed surprised, having not expected Konghou to appear. Don't misunderstand. Your humble servant merely does not like seeing someone without any power show off wherever she goes. Konghou was calm as if she was stating a very normal fact. The woman looked at Wuyan Qin without any contempt, but with a senior's chiding tone. Little sister Wuyan Qin, if you want to ascend Maiden Mountain, then you will only bring disgrace to yourself with this sort of strength. Ha 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 ha. Wuyan Qin cruelly smiled. She gripped her weapon even tighter. This general wants to see just who is the arrogant one. Wuyan Qin leapt. In an instant of haziness, a red figure was like a rolling dragon, flying about with terrifying speed. Countless spear shadows rolled and shot out, wrapped in intense killing intent. An air-shattering shriek filled the crystal dragon palace. Dragon kill grind. Wuyan Qin shouted. Countless rolling rays of killing intent interweaved, forming 1,000 dragons, completely surrounding Konghou. It was completely impossible to evade this killing intense attack. Continuous and fierce roars endlessly echoed, as if they wanted to devour her. Wuyan Qin's natural warrior intuition allowed her to sense Konghou's frightening aspects. From the very start, she showed no mercy in her plan to kill her. From an outsider's perspective, Konghou had nowhere to run. Even the most top-notch of cultivators could not receive this strike. Konghou slightly raised her brows. Her hands slightly extended to her front and directly caught Wuyan Qin's dragon kill grind. How? Wuyan Qin was shaken. No matter how the 1,000 rays of killing dragons roared, no matter how fast they were, all of her attacks were like cows in the sea, completely ineffective. Konghou's hands waved, fluid and elegant. Even stronger output was a stone sunk into the ocean, giving her a sort of feeling she was unable to wield her own power. Just as she saw that her trump card was unable to work, Wuyan Qin's complexion changed. She could no longer bear this kind of useless attack. Suddenly, she pounced as well, relying on her 3-layered armor to close the distance, thrusting her spear directly at Konghou's heart. Z. 2. Just as the spear drew near Konghou's heart, she felt an invisible resistance, and she was no longer able to proceed further. Under Wuyan Qin's efforts, the speartip's airflow whirled into a gorgeous vortex, like a halo. Wuyan Qin concentrated all of her strength to a single point, doing everything she could to stab. This spear's penetrative power could split rocks as if they were clouds. Awe-inspiring spear light blossomed from it. A clear and crisp sound, a bang. Wuyan Qin felt her spear unexpectedly stop. Liangshan continent surprisingly had someone who could take her full power strike. Wuyan Qin felt disbelief, and in an instant, an unfathomable thing happened. Konghou mysteriously appeared right in front of her. Her palms grabbed Wuyan Qin with a subjugation stance. Wuyan Qin was fearless due to her 3-layered armor protecting her. Her shoulder shook in preparation to throw Konghou off of her, but Konghou then grabbed her shoulder. Instantly, Wuyan Qin felt a weight as if the 5 sacred mountains were pressing down on her shoulder. This weight made Wuyan Qin feel strained. The great Liao's #1 fierce general was shocked. She could not use even a bit of her strength. Then in the next second, Konghou's hands seized her, and like a subdued true dragon, she was immediately punched away. A simple, unadorned punch smashed against Wuyan Qin's 3-layered armor. Bang! The powerful armor directly sunk in. The sound of the fist striking the armor seemed to be like a giant dragon's death cry. A mountain toppling, ocean overturning power rolled over her body. Wuyan Qin's eyes were wide open, feeling as if the bones and meridians in her body had been disintegrated. There was surprisingly no strength in her body. Under Konghou's punch, the martial force that she was so proud of seemed as ridiculous as a weak lamb. Wuyan Qin let out a blood-curdling scream. The power had punched straight through her armor and out her back, bursting out a clump of blood spatter. Konghou calmly and coolly retracted her fist, indifferent as a flower. Falling dragon Boundless. The great Liao's #1 great general, Wuyan Guang, defeated. The air practically froze into a stifled stage. No one expected such a thing would occur. The prehistoric Liao Emperor's #1 fierce general Wuyan Guan was surprisingly defeated in one blow. That impenetrable armor was completely collapsed, and even Emperor Liang and the other top-notch cultivators looked at that languid woman with stupefied expressions. Unable to defeat even your humble servant, yet you want to go challenge Maiden Mountain? Your humble servant urges that you not look at the sky from the bottom of a well. Konghou acted as if she was saying something obvious. You are not a cultivator of Liangshan continent. The Yelü Wuxin who had been holding her scroll changed expressions for the first time. Just who are you? You can just treat your humble servant as a passerby who saw the bumps in the road. Konghou smiled very amiably. This general is not yet defeated. Wuyan Qin roared. She sprung up, swinging her spear, slashing a cold and glaring arc of light. Without even looking, Konghou waved her palm. The wind from her palm directly twisted towards Wuyan. Although Wuyan was able to deflect it, Konghou already was beside her. So fast. Even the reaction speed that Wuyan was so proud of could only see the instant that Konghou appeared in front of her. A sharp ray of light scraped over her. Her movements were smooth and fluid, easy as flowing water and drifting clouds. This woman completed an instantaneous change in speed beneath her nose. With a sway, she was already upon her. Wuyan Guang's left hand brandished a fist heavy as the 5 sacred mountains. Astral wind crackled, piercing through 100 li. The corner of Konghou's lips had a slight smile. She easily leaned, her body techniques brilliant to the extreme. She then swept her right leg upwards, sweeping it with a swift and severe whistle towards Wuyan's head. Even though Wuyan had already been extremely vigilant, she completely did not expect Konghou to still be able to kick and deflect the punch. This woman's movements were so profound, to unexpectedly reach such a degree instantly at such a short distance. Relying on those instincts that naturally came to powerful warriors, Wuyan barely caught on to her opponent's movements. Yet she had lost the key moment to defend herself. Helpless, she attempted to sweep her spear in a counterattack. A pity, for everything was in Konghou's expectations. As if she was levitating, Konghou's slender and beautiful legs were like a phoenix spreading its wings and soaring into the sky. As if she was flying in all directions. She then circled around, pressuring her very closely. Wuyan suffered this head-on. From an outsider's perspective, Wuyan was repelled again in only the blink of an eye. At this time, the armor on her body was already considerably ruined, like scrap metal, and the female general's face cut an exceptionally sorry figure. Her pale expression was fully livid and unsightly. "Take this!" The cold Hichongbao shouted. Her voice like a clap of thunder, rolling into the ears and shaking the crystal dragon palace in all directions. Demons and monsters. Hichongbao's eyes flashed with a chilling light. 72 blood fiends suddenly took form, their appearances like devils, dragons, ghosts, and asuras. Caught in the middle of demons and monsters, the dragon palace sunk into bloodlight. The spectators incomparably aghast. "Be careful, these are blood fiends formed from the demons and monsters spell," Emperor Liao gravely warned. He recognized these as the main cause of what made the Azure Dragon territory suffer through a bloody carnage 1,000 years ago. These demons and monsters' blood fiends could multiply. Attacking them with flying swords and magic weapons would produce more and more doppelgangers. In the end, they could form an entire army, their offensive unstoppable, soaking mountains and rivers in blood. Only Buddhism's great mercy and compassion Buddhist magic could restrain them. It was precisely because of this favor from 1,000 years ago that Buddhism could keep their own independence in the Azure Dragon territory today, to not be disturbed. But because senior monk Four Noble Truths accepted a disciple, the disastrous loss of Buddhism's 6 patriarchs, not a single one of those top-notch Buddhist ancestors came to the Crystal Dragon Palace treasure banquet. The Buddhist disciples that did come were very few in number, but those that had truly comprehended profound Buddhist magic could be counted on fingers. Now that the demons and monsters' blood fiends had emerged, even Emperor Liao was somewhat worried about Konghou. "This really is a coincidence. Your humble servant is somewhat versed in Buddhism." Konghou was unimpressed. In her indifferent beauty, she seemed apparently forever unaware of the word danger. "Humph." Hichongbao sneered and formed a hand seal. 100 red runes appeared that attached to the blood fiends. They were like divine soldiers, their power unstoppable. The 72 blood fiends each rolled, and the thick bloodlight descended. Emperor Liao had originally thought to help Konghou, but although the true dragon imperial chi could stop the incursion of blood fiends, his divine intent would similarly be inhibited. He had no way to make a direct confrontation. Without a choice, Emperor Liao could only retreat. These blood fiends were indeed mighty. Konghou could not fully use her arms and legs for her martial arts, and even her boxing did not constitute a threat to these blood fiends. The blood fiends flocked close together to surround her in a ball of blood. If it was not for Chai Ling knowing Konghou's identity, she would have been somewhat anxiously thinking of using the red ink iron certificate to save her. 2. He Bauer's divine intent moved. When the bloody dance was at an extreme, the blood fiends surrounded Konghou and endlessly nipped at her body. Heaven Earth Dark Yellow. Gai pointed, and the Heaven Earth Dark Yellow Thousand Pagoda released light. The Buddhist light magnified, and a meditative mind lotus seed was superimposed in midair, blossoming to an enormous several zhang size. Gai had thought to help Konghou, but just at this moment, the concentrated sea of blood suddenly flashed with a brilliant sword light. A galaxy split open, unexpectedly parting the sea of blood. Then, the demons and monsters' blood fiends surrounding Konghou shrieked as they dispersed. Gai, your humble servant has not fallen low enough for you to take action. Konghou coldly responded. Gai leisurely smiled, and retracted the Heaven Earth Dark Yellow Thousand Pagoda. Bauer was astonished, very shocked to see that Konghou had surprisingly broke free of her strongest magic so easily. Indeed, it was somewhat formidable. Your humble servant had no choice but to use her weapon. It has been so long since it was used. Konghou's line of sight returned to Bauer. The woman gripped twin swords, each in one hand, her figure astounding. The twin swords in Konghou's hands were wrapped in a sea of stars, completely indistinguishable. That flickering sea of stars was blinding to the extreme, as if a galaxy had been pulled over the Crystal Dragon Palace. Those terrifying blood fiends appeared timid as ants under the galaxy / what powerful spirit. Bauer stopped. Demons and monsters was to no avail. Konghou curled the corner of her lips. Suddenly, her eyes emitted seriousness. Her figure moved, directly rushing forth. Along the way, she drew a galaxy, a blooming lotus. Black sword chi twisted towards Bauer as if to slay a dragon. Bauer instinctively told herself several times that she should evade, but her body nevertheless was completely unresponsive, rigid and incapable of budging. Rather than say the speed of Konghou's maneuver was too fast, it was a bit more appropriate to say that her powerful spirit already made Bauer feel fear. The twin swords twisted. The blood fiends were simultaneously destroyed. The next instant Bauer was entangled, her most powerful magic energy incapable of defending. Bao. Wuyan rushed forward to block. But Konghou had no compassion to speak of. The sword tip directly took Wuyan head. Even if Wuyan body was indestructible, she had been conquered at this moment by Konghou's kingly and lion-like gaze. She had one sensation: she would die. Do not kill her. Gai suddenly shouted. Konghou's blade fell. At the last moment she held back. Wuyan was heavily wounded by the slash. Bauer also received a reduced impact from Konghou's attack. Be at ease, your humble servant is incapable of killing her. An immortal and indestructible body has no limits. Gai, the rest is up to you. Konghou pushed her hand, and a sword wind pushed Wuyan and Bauer to Gai. Gai released the Heaven Earth Dark Yellow Thousand Pagoda. Its Buddhist light rose to absorb the two. Wuyan and Chongbao were not at all willing to give up, but they had been heavily wounded by Konghou's strike and were powerless to struggle. Release them. Liao Emperor Yelü Wuxin was finally impatient and shouted furiously. Konghou showed a make-me expression and said, Your number one great general made your humble servant use her true martial arts. Your number one magic general made your humble servant use her weapon. Perhaps you, the number one Liao Emperor, can make your humble servant suffer her first defeat in 1,000 years. This king just happens to know of an array that can handle you star generals. Yelü Wuxin sneered. The scroll in her hand shook, manifesting a chain that flew about. Then, pillars rose in the four corners, and 108 stars fell to form a profound array. When this array appeared, Wu Xinjia immediately felt her body turn powerless, as if the star energy in her body had been sucked dry. Not only the knowledge star, each and every star maiden in the Crystal Dragon Palace fell to a knee, all of the strength in their body fading away. This situation was very much like when Lin Yingmei was caught in the Heavenly Cycle Northern Dipper Array. However, no matter how the Star Masters used star energy resonance, they were unable to produce any effect. The star crests on all the star maidens dimmed. Wu Xinjia's face paled. She was in disbelief. Taiyi Spherical Heaven Form Array. What is your relationship with Su Xing? Gong Kaiwei sat on a chair in one of the winding corridors of Bian City's imperial palace, gazing at the faraway green hills on the horizon. Leader Star Zhu Wu stood beside her. The tall woman of well-rounded figure seemed like a statue. That delicate face seemed even more rigid than a sculpture's. Up until she heard this poor question, Zhu Sha's brows only then slightly shifted. The Lingyan princess's light purple long skirt trailed along the ground, and she was also draped in a veil of purple silk. Her long hair was rolled up with a jade hairpin, leaving her brow with an even elegance and nobility flowing waters exuded. But her slightly puffed cheeks were nevertheless slightly incongruous with this noble air. A polite description was serious, but a more blunt was jealous. Gong Kaiwei glanced at Zhao Hanyan out of the corner of her eye. Friends. Kaiwei, is it really so simple? Zhao Hanyan seemingly smiled. This princess hears Imperial Uncle Gong complain all the time. He says that you normally are as cold as ice, Gong Kaiwei, that you keep people 1,000 li away. Countless princes and dukes, and even my imperial little brother, have all been spurned. Little sister Kaiwei, if you truly have eyes on my Su Xing, Hanyan will reluctantly relent, so long as Kaiwei does not dislike being a concubine. We are only friends. Gong Kaiwei calmly replied. Remembered during the birth treasure outline, Hanyan even brazenly took action with little sister Kaiwei. It seems Hanyan has misunderstood that time then. Zhao Hanyan stared steadily in front of her at the girl who was cold as ice. That pair of clear and penetrating eyes made the Lingyan princess unable to make sense of her. Does little sister Kaiwei not want to know what happened between this princess and Su Xing? So many very interesting things certainly happened between this princess and he. Zhao Hanyan took a step further, showing a sweet expression, but Gong Kaiwei was still unmoved. Her expression that seemed to say this had nothing to do with her made Zhao Hanyan a bit depressed. The Zhao Hanyan that had wanted to see Gong Kaiwei jealous turned a bit bored, and did not pester her any further. She chatted with Dong Junqing, Lin Yingmei, and Ensuan about Su Xing's most recent developments. Their sense of familiarity with one another while chatting was inharmonious with Gong Kaiwei's atmosphere of coldness. Speaking of what had happened to Su Xing all this time was a story full of thrill after thrill. However, still Gong Kaiwei calmly sat in the corridor, gazing into the distance. But that not very particularly focused expression more or less betrayed the girl's hidden distress. Zhao Hanyan thought of 4 words, as lonely as snow. This general wonders what trick that little devil Su Xing used to surprisingly be able to make immortal hero princess Gong Kaiwei so preoccupied. Dong Junqing was astonished. Suan, Yingmei, and you stick to Su Xing like shadows, and you do not know? Zhao Hanyan asked. And Suan shook her head. Wait until he comes out. This princess will ask him herself then. Not long after, the stone-faced leader Star Divine Strategist Zhu Sha suddenly widened her eyes. She extended a hand and gazed at the horizon. Something has happened. Gong Kaiwei rose and coldly said. What is the matter? Zhao Hanyan and the others walked over, seeing Zhu Sha's considerably serious expression. Although she was always very stiff this time, she appeared even more grim. Zhu Sha has calculated that something has happened at the Crystal Dragon Palace. Can anything possibly happen in the Crystal Dragon Palace during the treasure banquet? There are times when the divine strategist has miscalculated. Zhao Hanyan did not agree. The treasure banquet could be said to be a gathering of the Azure Dragon Territory's top-notch Supervoid cultivators, and there were even many Star Masters. Furthermore, the Crystal Dragon Palaces connecting Heaven-Ocean Settling Pearls were known all throughout Liangshan continent. For something to happen now, Zhao Hanyan did not believe this at all. Perhaps some belligerent fools would have plans on the banquet, however, their exit would inevitably be death without an intact corpse. Gong Kaiwei gazed at Zhu Sha, also somewhat skeptical. The Taiyi is born, Crimson Star Great Disaster. Zhu Sha calmly spat out these words. Just as they were curious, and Suan suddenly gasped. Her gaze looked in astonishment at the sky. Following the efficacious star's line of sight, they saw the brightly glittering stars that represented the 108 star maidens. In the clouds surrounding these stars, there were myriad odd changes and abnormality. There was a regular pattern, showing a slight mystery in the formation. The 108 stars in the sky represented all of Maiden Mountain's star maidens. Those stars appeared very close, yet they were out of reach. Once, a Supervoid cultivator wanted to investigate, but they did not find anything in the end. Now those representative stars now displayed an array, so it was no wonder the divine strategist would say Crimson Star great disaster. I must first go to the Crystal Dragon Palace. Princess Xiaohanyan, take good care of Su Xing. Gong Kaiwei snapped her delicate fingers, and a completely snow-white flying sword appeared. That place definitely will have something regarding the star duels. This princess certainly does not want to miss this. Zhao Hanyan promptly said. Then Su Xing. Hearing Gong Kaiwei's tone that inadvertently exposed her slight apprehension, Zhao Hanyan smiled sweetly. Su Xing has Lin Yingmei, Husanyang, and Ensuan for protection. This princess does not need to worry. This princess is much more interested in seeing who is so brazen as to dare cause trouble in the Crystal Dragon Palace. You have the intertwined branches. You had better stay at his side. Little sister Kaiwei, are you ordering this princess? Zhao Hanyan smiled and said. You both had better go together with me. A clear and sonorous voice interrupted the two girls. Zhao Hanyan and Gong Kaiwei turned their heads. The door opened, and a man with a sharp brow and glittering eyes walked in. He wore a white gown, appearing refined. Beside him were two beautiful girls, one wearing water blue underwear. Her figure absolutely beautiful, and the other was full of a vigorous heroic air, beautiful all over. They were none other than Su Xing, Lin Yingmei, and Hunyangzi, big brother. And Ensuan ran over in delighted surprise. Su Xing, you recovered so quickly? Dong Junqing looked up and down at the man in front of her. His aura was flat yet sustained as a river. A person without discernment may have felt nothing, but as a Five Tigers general, steadfast star general of double spears could see from a glance this man was out of the ordinary. Vaguely, there was unexpectedly the aura of a powerful martial general emitting from him, which was very surprising. Dong Junqing suddenly felt dry mouth. She could not help but unconsciously lick her lips. This man is feeling more and more like us star generals. Could it be because of the love you make to us sisters? The steadfast star's bare words made every girl present blush. This can be considered a rare sight across all the ages. Zhao Hanyan was a bit sour. Su Xing fake coughed and changed the topic. It felt like more than 2 months had passed as I was cultivating, that I didn't see you. It was only 2 days. Let's not talk about this for now. We'd better rush for the Crystal Dragon Palace. Su Xing looked at the stars in the sky. The formation appeared even more strange. Dear husband. Hunyangzi suddenly looked straight at Su Xing. Su Xing's forehead burned. Several gorgeous star crests continuously superimposed and flickered. Something big should be happening at the Crystal Dragon Palace. With the strong rapport he had with Wuxia and the others, Su Xing could clearly sense their situation. Each of the star crests on his forehead represented one star maiden. This concentration clearly made him suffer intense pressure. Could it be Emperor Liang and the others working together against you? Gong Kaiwei's tone was detached. No, Father Emperor would not do such a thing. Zhao Hanyan did not hesitate at all to reject this. Su Xing actually was not too worried about something happening to Wuxia. With Wu Xiao, Chai Ling, Hua Wanyu and the others, even if they actually met with Emperor Liang's alliance, they still had the Three Realms Immortal Movement pendant for protection. Regardless, we'll know the instant we can see the situation. Su Xing took a deep breath. Zhao Hanyan glanced at him, actually somewhat worried. Although Su Xing had recovered to Supervoid early stage, he clearly felt the pressure and forcefully broke through the bottleneck. To take action before recuperating was certainly very disadvantageous. There is a large teleportation array nearby in the Imperial Palace. It leads to the Jima Beach near the Eastern Sea. We can save a few days' time. Zhao Hanyan said. Su Xing nodded. There was no time to lose. Several extremely fast escape lights flit past the Forbidden Palace. Zhu Sha, since you are knowledgeable about arrays, do you know what kind of array that was just now? Su Xing asked. The others were also very curious. They had never known of such an array in their memory that could surprisingly manifest a worldly anomaly that could trap the 108 star maidens. It is perhaps that Taiyi spherical heaven form array. Zhu Sha gently sighed. Thus, as Su Xing and the others rushed for Jima, the situation at the Eastern Sea Crystal Dragon Palace was already enough to stun everyone. 108 pillars rose in the Crystal Dragon Palace to form a 100 mu-sized formation. In the array, many brilliant stars flashed, manifesting the 28 mansions, and an additional 11 stars. Liao Emperor Yelü Wuxin sat at the exact center of the array, her scroll unfurling. A curtain of light like the sea, with red, black, white, and blue simultaneously spiraled from each of the mansion spirit lights, displaying the forms of the vermilion bird, black turtle, white tiger, and azure dragon. The scene was extremely breathtaking. The array's spirit lights flashed, and the disguises of all star generals and star masters collapsed. Their foreheads shimmered with star crests, each and every one of them seemingly bearing the weight of the 5 sacred mountains, unable to move even a step. Xinjie, what is going on? Wuxia was also stunned. Although there was the heavenly cycle Northern Dipper array in the star duels that was capable of restricting a star general's star energy, the fact was that this kind of array could only inhibit one star general, and have various restrictions. It was completely unlike this Liao Emperor's array that could surprisingly trap so many star generals as easily as blowing dust. Looking around, the more than dozen star maidens and star masters present all displayed difficult expressions. Even with her pilgrim's array, she could not bear the pressure of this array. You are known as star generals, yet you surprisingly do not know? Yelü Wuxin held victory within her hands and showed a self-confident expression. Star World's million star names carry on as indestructible legends, yet only my great Liao's Taiyi spherical heaven form array is able to punish all things. When that childish empress Great Song first painstakingly destroyed my great Liao, it was precisely because of this array. Yet she never imagined that the Taiyi spherical heaven array brought this king into this realm. Haha. If you are sensible, you will obediently kill Chao Gai and follow this king. This king shall take you to attack Maiden Mountain. Chao Gai, are her words true? Konghou looked at the surrounding lights and asked. This one does not know of this, but indeed, this one has heard that the Liao Emperor pursues hegemony. The Liao Kingdom once used a Taiyi spherical heaven array to slaughter in all directions. Afterwards, Xian knew of the 9th firmament conferred the heavenly book to break the array. Chao Gai coldly said, attacking Maiden Mountain is not a bad proposal. It is such a pity that you are villains. Your humble servant will never follow such pitiful nobodies. Konghou's tone was indolent. You dare say the great king is a pitiful nobody? Wuyan Qin furiously shouted. It is only because this king can see you are not quite like the other star generals that this king uttered such a thing. Konghou, do not think too highly of yourself. Yelü Wuxin was very calm. Her scholarly attitude made Konghou somewhat impressed. Do you actually think you can defeat us by relying on such an array? Chai Ling disdainfully said. Since this is the case, then this king shall take Maiden Mountain's 108 star generals as tribute for this king's ascension. Yelü Wuxing sneered, and her hand gently lifted. The light curtain poured down, and the 28 mansions shook. Chai Ling only felt a heavy blow smash into her stomach. With a boom, her heartbeat suddenly stopped. The Taiyi spherical heaven form array emerged, and everyone noticed that all the star generals seemed to bear the 5 sacred mountains. Those star generals that ordinarily could make cultivators fearful and envious were completely suppressed as if they were infants. Even a scholar that lacked the strength to truss a chicken could kill them now. But Maiden Mountain's might shook Liangshan content, and Thousand Buddha star Chao Gai was also present. Although those cultivators had fantasies, they nevertheless did not dare move in the slightest. However, some did not feel the same way. Knowledge star, thou must die. Northern Darkness has fish's white hair fluttered, and his eyes shot out a sharp essence light. The most high path 3 Clarities flying swords became countless specks of light that fell towards Wu Xinjie and the other girls. Up until now, the purple thunder monster still did not appear, and Northern Darkness has fish was unable to detect him using divine intent. He more or less already realized that the purple thunder monster probably was not in the Crystal Dragon Palace, but left the Knowledge Star and the others to manage his affairs. This discovery made Northern Darkness as fish ecstatic. Everyone knew that if a star general was too far from her contractor, they would be unable to return to the star nest in the case they were killed. This was the reason why star generals and star masters were inseparable after signing a contract. But Northern Darkness as fish was counting his chickens before they hatched. A cold and clear sword light chased over. That sword light immediately turned into a heavenly immortal that blocked the 3 Clarities flying swords' black light on contact. The one who intervened was none other than Emperor Liang. Northern Darkness as fish looked over, and his expression immediately sunk. Emperor Liang, this old man today wants only to take the purple thunder monster's life. If you interfere any further, you will become enemies with the Most High Path. Emperor Liang's expression was calm as water, but his eyes inadvertently leaked his kingly grandeur. The 72 outer void flying immortals' swords, true immortals, circled around, the flickering sword lights menacing. Northern Darkness as fish, you have already become enemies with the Azure Dragon territory. Emperor Liang indifferently said. Long Wanxin, immortal outside heaven, do you think so too? Northern Darkness as fish recovered his calm. Immortal outside heaven's clothes fluttered. She was expressionless, her beauty exceedingly refined, but the sword spirit rainbows, her 72 outer void flying immortals, swords manifested, emerged layer upon layer, clearly demonstrating her hostility. Long Wanxin. Northern Darkness as fish then looked to the Imperial Empress of the Crystal Dragon Palace. Long Wanxin's expression was graceful, but she could not bear this as she remembered their more than 100-year-old friendship. Northern Darkness as fish, release the connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls right now. Unite with us to confront the White Tiger territory. There is still time to redeem this blunder. Please, fellow has fish, think over this again. You absolutely cannot be impulsive. This old man only wants to kill those star generals of the purple thunder monsters. Northern Darkness as fish expressionlessly replied. Would it not be better for you to work together with this old man? Long Wanxin, could it be you would let go of this opportunity? How can what this old man is doing now not be for everyone's star masters? Long Wanxin hesitated briefly. These words certainly stirred her thoughts. Long Wanxin. Northern Darkness as fish has already conspired with the White Tiger territory demon scoundrels. The connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls are proof. Do you really believe him? Emperor Liang smiled, full of disdain. The Liao Emperor will not save you. Northern Darkness as fish, you had better give yourself up. Northern Darkness as fish coldly snorted and disdained to reply. His body manifested a black light and directly flew over. The moment he moved, Emperor Liang and Immortal outside heaven were already completely ready for this. 100-sword spirit immortal immediately attacked. The dazzling true immortal continuously struck Northern Darkness as fish, but the latter was worthy of being named the Most High Path's #1 cultivator. His cultivation was profound, and the sword chant of the 2 great Supervoid peak cultivators were both warded off. Multicolored flying swords practically flooded the palaces within 100 meters. Sword lights spurt forth everywhere, making some cultivators who were too late to protect themselves suffer casualties. When Long Wanxin saw that Northern Darkness as fish was obsessed, her heart inwardly sighed, and she used her magic weapons and powers. In an instant, the showdown between 4 great Supervoid cultivators became the Crystal Dragon Palace's most influential battle. Northern Darkness as fish was somewhat strained fighting a 3-on-1. Several times, his sword array was obstructed before it could break the siege upon him. Emperor Liang and Immortal outside heaven's flying swords already were at the true spirit realm. Although their cultivations could not compare to his, even Northern Darkness as fish considered himself inferior in terms of sword chants. The extreme clarity dark light was increasingly feeble under this assault. Northern Darkness as fish suddenly shouted and brought out his strongest magic weapon, the 3 Clarities banner. He chanted the Most High Indifference incantation, and in a split second, a kind of worldly tranquility gathered on Northern Darkness as fish's body. The Most High dark light protecting him clearly faded away, but northern darkness fish still gave them an even more powerful feeling. This sensation was as if heaven and earth had become one. This is bad, that is the most high indifference. Long Wanqin's tone was shocked. The legendary Wen Qi becomes 3 clarities? A perfect chance to experience it for ourselves. Emperor Liang sneered. Northern darkness has fish shook the 3 clarities banner. The 3 clarities banner shook out a ray of essence qi that lingered at his side. Then the essence qi dispersed, and 3 identical northern darkness has fishes appeared before them. Regardless of appearance, might, or even cultivation, they were exactly the same. Emperor Liang, today you destroyed the great Liang. Northern darkness has fish slowly opened his eyes. The 3 northern darkness has fishes spoke at the same time. The words they said were oppressive. Emperor Liang used the true dragon imperial qi to probe. Astonishingly, he discovered these projections and northern darkness has fish were equally matched. The 3 clarities banner can form 3 doppelgangers, but the most high indifference cultivated to the highest realm can reach the oneness of heaven and man stage. At this time, the doppelgangers will be no different from the real one. Long Wanqin hastily explained, so as to avoid Emperor Liang and immortal outside heaven being caught off guard. What 3 northern darkness has fishes? Immortal outside heaven was shocked. Fellow has fish, quickly stop. You absolutely cannot make mistake upon mistake. Long Wanqin was very clear that the most high indifference cultivation method would make the cultivator turn even colder, even dominate the cultivator himself, turning him into a monster of slaughter. It was for this reason that although the highest realm of the most high indifference ability was powerful, it was rare for a cultivator to practice it to this degree. But northern darkness has fish already put his all into the fight at this time. He would not listen to anything. Long Wanqin, you may as well hand over your bright moon ring too. The 3 northern darkness has fishes smiled at the same time, chilling to the bone. Then they simultaneously used different but equally powerful flying sword powers. Suddenly, the 3 clarities immortal light extinguished the lights of Emperor Liang, and the others in total domination. Millions of cultivators could only watch dumbstruck. Meanwhile, the white tiger 7 spirit stars, blue-faced beast Yang Zijin, striking hawk, Li Qingqiao and the others were also unable to move under the Taiyi spherical heaven form array. But compared to the other panicky star masters, the white tiger demons were nevertheless calm and collected, not at all concerned. After checking his star general, Shijioing watched that Wen Qi forms 3 clarities battle with a cruel grin. That Azure Dragon territory Taoist powers are even stranger than ours, to unexpectedly form 3 equally powerful doppelgangers. So do not be careless of them, Shijioing. Song Feng said in agreement. What a pity that the time will still come for internecine strife. Shijioing complacently smiled. Song Feng did not mind. He glanced at the battle of the Supervoid peak. Wen Qi becomes 3 clarities in front of him. Behind him was the Liao Emperor's battle, and from time to time, there was also the Star Maiden battles of the Azure Dragon territory and others. Their side was contrarily quiet. In contrast, within the Taiyi spherical heaven form array, they were very calm about their Star Maidens' identities being exposed. Now is the perfect time to kill the Azure Dragon territory's Star Masters down to the last one. Clearly, Shijioing had noticed this point. The youth became somewhat excited. Relying on their cultivation add magic weapons, without their star generals for support. These Star Masters were nothing more than fish on the chopping block waiting for their doom. But out of worry for the Liao Emperor, everyone placed their gazes on the old man. Taisui, what is your decision? Everyone turned their heads to look, each and every one of them gazing at the calm and composed old man sitting on a prayer mat. The air around him stopped its flow, as if it was dead. After a seemingly long time, in what seemed another instant, the old man slowly opened his clear eyes. He only spoke 2 words that made the air surrounding him instantly come alive. Kill them. Master. Stalk of Flower Kai Yunjin looked painfully at her star master. The heavenly river sword sex Li Xianyan stood close by to protect her. Yunjin, leave this time. Li Xianyan gave her a comforting expression that made the girl feel relief. It would be difficult for all the star generals outside their star nests to appear again if they returned to the star nest with the Taiyi spherical heaven form array in effect. This gave the other star masters a very great opportunity. An enormous killing intent pounced right at his face. Dust and stones suddenly flew about, turning the world dark. Protect junior brother Xianyan. The expression of a heavenly sword sect elder changed. Several dozen sword sect disciples gripped their heavenly river swords and opened an array. Insignificant star masters that dare take advantage of this crisis, do not be reckless. The elder sneered, believing that a short-sighted star master would want to take profit from this crisis. However, other than a top-notch star master like Zhao Hanyan, against the star masters in front of him, the old man had nothing to fear with his supercluster late-stage cultivation. The Azure Dragon Territory's ignorant youngster bluffs. A chilling sentence entered his ear. Shockingly, it was the voice of a young man. A shadow instantly arrived in front of them. The Heavenly River Sword sect disciples raised their Heavenly River swords, firing sword lights, like lines of water pulling apart. They simultaneously spun in the surroundings like a net. This was the Heavenly River Sword sect's famous Heavenly River Sword array. Heavenly Water one line. That youth laughed out loud. He threw a slab of rotten wood. That rotten wood fell and vanished. That youth himself abruptly disappeared in midair as well. The Heavenly Water Sword sect's disciples looked around at each other, their expression astonished, none of them daring to be careless. Look out! Li Xianyan shouted. Before the other disciples could react, they heard an ear-splitting crack. The ground beneath them cracked open, and more than a dozen trees broke through the earth and pierced towards the skies like sharp swords. Instantly a small forest was formed. These disciples could not handle a Supervoid cultivator's magic weapon. Without even the slightest bit of resistance, they were skewered through their whole bodies. The Heavenly River Sword sect disciples were unexpectedly wiped out. Only Li Xianyan and the Heavenly Sword sect elder escaped this disaster by relying on their high-level reactions and cultivation. How is it? Do you like your servant's magic weapon Azure Dragon Execution Wood? The young man appeared in the forest, wearing a cruel grin. Those corpses hanging on the trees were still wide-eyed. The running blood making the youth's savagery appear all the more shocking. This youth was none other than Shijioing. Ah! Seeing his disciples die so wretchedly, the Heavenly River Sword sect's elder was extremely furious. He opened his mouth and fired more than 100 rock-piercing water droplets, like a torrential downpour. The forest was immediately uprooted, truly courting death. Shijioing raised both his hands, and more than 100 trees skyrocketed. Shijioying's divine intent moved, and the trees stabbed towards the elder. The old man used his sword chant, activating the Heavenly River's Black Water Dark Snake Sword Array. More than 100 pitch-black flying swords slithered like a snake and attacked. The flying swords surged unstoppable. Seeing that his flying swords were about to break the opposition's magic weapon, the old man was pleased. The mocking grin on the corner of Shijioying's lips appeared even more cruel. He formed a hand seal, and the disheveled trees suddenly combined into a single giant tree. This tree's branches were convoluted, its leaves verdant. The leaves were dark as ink, and the treetop parted suddenly to let in black light. The black water flying swords were covered by this black light, and immediately lost their support. The Heavenly River Sword sect elder was astonished. Suddenly he felt an enormous pain in his divine intent. His heart panicked, and the flying swords he controlled collapsed. Shijioying's Azure Dragon Execution Wood was created using an ancient tree in prehistory, known as Subjugating Dragon Execution. It contained enormous power that could harm divine intent, particularly difficult for flying swords to stop. The old man shouted to himself that this was bad, and he promptly activated a magic weapon. Shijioing grinned mercilessly. When he arrived in front of the old man, his hands suddenly transformed into countless vines and branches that grabbed. The magic weapon was expanding, but before it could fully activate, Shijioing snatched it in right hand. Shijioing had Li Qingxiao's innate skill hovering combat, too, which greatly raised his realm. This action could be said to be extremely quick. The Heavenly River Elder did not react fast enough, and he was immediately pierced through the chest and died. Elder. Li Xianyan was endlessly hurt. Now it is your turn. Shi Jiuying ripped apart the elder and turned to attack Li Xianyan. Li Xianyan resisted with full power. Although he was renowned as the Heavenly River Sword Sect's up-and-coming genius in recent years, Shi Jiuying was a wood demon that had cultivated for 1,000 years. A so-called genius was nothing more than an ant before him. Just as Li Xianyan was about to suffer a fatal blow, just at this moment, an enormous blood-colored flower petal flew out. This bloody flower petal bloomed, spitting out a bloodlight that entangled Shi Jiuying. The flower petals closed, swallowing Shi Jiuying like a giant mouth. This flower was stalk of flower Kai Yunjin's star beast Bloody Thara. 3. The star generals were trapped by the array, yet star beasts were not. At this very moment, star beasts had become the greatest protection a star general had aside from their star masters. Master. Kai Yunjin's pained expression was nevertheless resolutely controlling her divine intent. She made the bloody Thara devour Shi Jiuying's corpse. Let's go quickly. Li Xianyan wanted to grab Kai Yunjin and leave. A bone-chilling laugh. The bloody Thara suddenly shuddered. Its flower petals were in incomparable pain. Bloodlight burst out from inside. Its flower petals split open, and with a bang, the bloody Thara let out a shriek as it was torn apart. Kai Yunjin's face paled, watching in disbelief as her star beast bloody Thara was killed. A strange, twisted tree full of markings sprouted towards the heavens. That tree appeared ghastly, its form gnarled, winding like blood vessels. Its dense leaves were sharp as razor blades. With a rustle, it let out a hair-raising chill. Not good, this demon has revealed his true body. Li Xianyan turned aghast. The White Tiger Territory's demon cultivators used their cultivation of their essence to assume human form. If they released their true bodies, their cultivations would skyrocket. A demon's true body was even more powerful. Shi Jiuying maintained a human youth's appearance at merely supercluster stage, more or less. Revealing his true body, he entered Supervoid cultivation. Damned ants, to surprisingly force me into using my true body. Your servant will hang your skulls as decorations. A youth's twisted face formed on the tree trunk. Shi Jiuying shouted with bared fangs. His tree leaves rustled. Ah, tree demon. A tree demon. This is bad. The several thousand cultivators that had rushed over to face Shi Jiuying together were scared out of their wits when they saw that giant, frightening tree. They used their escape techniques and flying swords to escape in a panic. Shi Jiuying sneered incessantly. His leaves shook. Countless spikes rose from the ground, covering a range of 500-600 meters. Blade-like tree leaves shot out, turning into tiny black lights. Screams rang out continuously everywhere. Countless cultivators were too late to react. Supervoid cultivation was extremely powerful. Shi Jiuying had instantly killed thousands of cultivators in the blink of an eye. The dense spikes pounced, and Li Xianyan was pale in despair. Master. Kai Yunjin sobbed, unexpectedly forcing herself to stand against the Taiyi spherical heaven form array. She leapt, wanting to grab Li Xianyan's hand. Li Xianyan reached out his hand in incomparable despair. Everything collapsed around them. Yunjin, Li Xianyan shouted, wanting to hold Kai Yunjin's hand in death. Shi Jiuying clearly was disgusted at such a warm scene. The earth spikes became even more numerous and frightening. However, in the end he could not stop their firm grip on one another. At the same time, the rolling earth spike tore Li Xianyan to pieces. After a whimper, stalk of flower Kai Yunjin also disappeared. A crimson star immediately fell onto the demon tree. When Shi Jiuying started his slaughter, the other White Tiger 7 spirit stars obtained Li Taisui's indication, and did not hesitate to seize the opportunity afforded by the connecting heaven-ocean settling pearls, to slaughter the other star masters and star generals. Crimson stars fell one after another. Xiang Qinxing brandished a giant staff. The staff's wind blew about, and golden light shot out, killing several dozen cultivators. His attack style was violent, opening a great general's wind. Having inherited Zhou Zhiyun's layered pupil's innate skill, this made Xiang Qinxing's eyes appear even more terrifying. His staff was unstoppable, and the others' cultivators could not defend against this. Ah! general of Holy Fire Wei Ranxin, was killed by Xiang Qinxing into the star nest without any resistance. Little sister, quickly run. Sikong Chuha hastily shouted. The yin-yang twin swords pincer attacked, twisting for Xiang Qinxing's head, but they clanged against his neck as if they had struck iron. Hearing this sound, there was unexpectedly no result. Bastard! Sikong Dangyo angrily cursed. Seeing this man seize the chance to kill Dan Menger when she was trapped, she wanted him to flay him alive. Countless fire arrows descended. Xiang Qinxing did not fear the power of her flames at all. This man, who did not even feel like putting on a stiff expression, felt nothing at all. Golden light twinkled as he slashed with his giant staff. Several golden, sickle-shaped killing intents directly and neatly cut the palaces apart. Sikong Dangyo barely evaded, but killing intent covered her at the same time. Xiang Qinxing swung his giant staff. Silong Dangyo's frightened face was ashen. Fortunately, Sikong Chuha was always prepared. The girl pointed her finger, and a burst of water blossomed that entangled the descending staff. Then, she used the Snow Woman lantern, and Sikong Chuha advanced with an icy spear in her hands, burning with a flame like frost. The way the flames burned was extremely unusual, like the flapping of a bird's wing. Xiang Qinxing's brows finally rose. Sikong Chuha grunted. Frost Luan 9 firmaments. Sikong Chuha shouted in a low voice as her spear slashed a surging frost flame that burned from the spear. The flame that could burn even the blue dome of heaven immediately consumed Xiang Qinxing. Sikong Chuha seized the chance to pull her little sister into sitting on the heavenly river divine cold and retreated. Elder sister, why are we not killing him? Sikong Dangyo angrily said. We cannot. That demon has a metal body for protection. I fear his true body is that of a metal-armored demon beast. Even the yin-yang twin swords are helpless. We cannot beat him. Sikong Chuha was anxious. Wait until we sisters practice the yin-yang twin phoenix Jian, then we can beat him. Sikong Sihuha consoled. Sikong Dangyo had wanted to say something. Feet ice flame behind them dispersed. As Sikong Chuha had expected, Xiang Qinxing barreled out of the flames, his layered pupils frightening, glinting with a golden light. Even Sikong Dangyo was frightened as if by a devil. Sikong Chuha did not expect him to be this thorny. The heavenly river divine colt sprayed a burst of waterlight that formed a net. Xiang Qinxing abruptly threw out a treasure. A golden light immediately pierced through, running through the heavenly river divine colt like a shooting star. The heavenly river divine colt whimpered, and the Sikong Chuha and Sikong Dangyo immediately fell unsteadily from its back. Little sister. Sikong Chuha for the first time showed a fearful expression. A tall and sturdy man appeared beside Sikong Dangyo. His layered pupils glinted, reflecting Sikong Dangyo's blank expression. Without any hesitation, the man swung the giant staff squarely down. Just as Sikong Dangyo was about to be hacked in two by Xiang Qinxing, just at this moment, a beam of white light struck Xiang Qinxing. He grimaced, stopping his body for just a brief moment. At this very moment, Sikong Dangyo activated her underground escape technique, and her figure faded from where she lay on the ground. Instantly, she reappeared beside her elder sister. Sikong Dangyo had always been under the careful attention of her elder sister, whenever they ran into great danger. Even when they faced the famous purple thunder monster, she had escaped with the assistance of her elder sister. Unlike what happened at that time, the girl's face was streaked with tears. If it was not for the inappropriate scene, she probably would have buried her face into her elder sister's chest to weep. Sikong Chuha breathed a sigh of relief. She cast a grateful gaze, and just as she was about to give her thanks, she froze upon seeing her counterpart. The one who took action was a tall and graceful woman. Her hand pinched a pure white talisman, and her expression held an air of mystery like that of mist. Her brow had a dab of cinnabar, and her expression was collected yet without mysteriousness. Furthermore, her forehead sparkled with a star crest, making clear the woman's identity, Star Master. Sui Xiao's heart right now truly was somewhat frustrated. She had always resided in seclusion at her inn in the Vermilion Bird territory, prepared to peacefully manage her business until the moment the star duels ended. She had not intended to join this Crystal Dragon Palace treasure banquet, but she had never expected to encounter majestic Star Panther head Lin Yingmei and hero star Little Li Guang Hua Wanyue later on. She was enthralled by these two great and unique martial generals, and in her heart she had great longing for them. The painting scene from that day was still vivid in her mind. The painting that day was not finished, which made literature star sacred-handed scholar Xiao Qingyan very regretful. Upon hearing that the treasure banquet was opening, that top-notch martial generals would inevitably appear, these two planned a trip and hurried over. On one hand, they wanted to see Lin Yingmei and Hua Wanyue to finish their painting. On the other, they also wanted to see this famous banquet. By the time they rushed the 1,000 li from the Vermilion Bird territory to the Crystal Dragon Palace, it was already the last day. Not only did they not see Lin Yingmei, on the contrary, they had actually fallen into the trap the White Tiger 7 spirit stars had lain. The Taiyi spherical heaven form array. This made Su Yixiao smile somewhat helplessly. She only wanted to peacefully run her business, right to the end of the star duels. She had never wanted to be drawn into the battles of star masters. 2. When she saw that the Sikong sisters had been trapped, these two sisters piqued Su Yixiao, so the girl took action. Many thanks for the rescue. Being saved by a star master made Sikong Chuha feel somewhat strange, yet her heart still brimmed with gratitude. The three of us must work together to face this demon. Su Yixiao gently said. Sikong Dongnyo knew Xiang Chenxing's might. Under the Taiyi spherical heaven array, they could not escape. They could only fight to the death. If they put everything on the line, they still had a chance at life. Xiang Chenxing showed a mocking expression. The man's build was tall as an iron tower. The Sikong sisters and Su Yixiao really were weak women in his eyes, a clear contrast. Just the three of you who overestimate yourselves? Xiang Chenxing's knuckles cracked. There is also me. A voice as firm as iron. Another man flew over. That man was well-groomed and attractive appearance. His forehead had a star crest, and his cultivation was supercluster early stage. Your servant is Tai Shuang. 3 ladies, let us for now set aside our grudges to confront this demon beast. The man cupped his fist and introduced himself. Seeing Li Xiangyan's wretched death to Shijioing, Tai Shuang realized the might of these white tiger demons. This was the first time he had run over to form a team. Su Yixiao slightly nodded, not saying anything. Sikong Chuha agreed, and her gaze stopped on Xiang Chenxing. 4 star masters working together. Even if their cultivations were a level lower, they could still manage. Xiang Chenxing roared, just like a tiger out of a cage. His supercluster peak's powerful aura nearly knocked them over. Tai Shuang sneered, activating his sword chant and sword array. Then he was covered in armor of black iron. A horse or ox-like black beast with a horn appeared. This was the star beast of Tai Shuang's star general. Heavy black. Sikong Chuha was taken aback. She was quite familiar with this star beast. This beast's name was Heavy Black, because its whole body was as hard as black iron, becoming famous through its armor unsurpassed under heaven. Its horn was even more indestructible, and it just happened to be somewhat useful against Xiang Chenxing. But the heavy black beast did not charge Xiang Chenxing. On the contrary, it stayed near Tai Shuang, guarding him like the fortress walls to a city. Although they knew this behavior was due to the Star Maiden protecting her master, this made Sikong Chuha brim with vigilance about this graceful man. Sikong Chuha used the Snow Woman lantern, and her body was full of ice cold. Her hand gripped the frost lance as she charged without any fear. Sikong Dongnyo also used her flying swords as backup. Su Yixiao was feeble. She did not have any flying swords or powers, and she was not like Sikong Chuha, who was full of a martial general's bearing. The young girl's hand tugged her black hair, and a slender ray of white light like a cute living serpent wound around the girl's fingertip, producing a pure white light ball on Su Yixiao's magic weapon Loyal Heart Wonderful Brush. This beast was named Blank Space. 5. The Sacred-Handed Scholar's Star Beast. The Sacred-Handed Scholar's innate skill was talisman drawing, and Blank Space could produce talisman paper and rapid cast talismans. With this, although Su Yixiao was not forceful like Tai Shuang or the Sikong sisters, She brought the most trouble to Xiangqinxing. A talisman flew out from the girl's fingertip. It struck Xiangqinxing and became various kinds of fire birds and water apes, blades and spears. Tai Shuang's flying swords flashed with a black rainbow, becoming 2 fanged dragons. Each was 7 or 8 zhang long, exceptionally malevolent. Xiangqinxing's expression did not panic, as if he had already anticipated this attack. This giant staff slashed with a resplendent golden light. 2 rays of golden light similarly changed and entangled Tai Shuang's flying swords. Xiangqinxing was pounded painfully by the talismans. Even with his body that did not lose out to a vajra, he was becoming somewhat aggravated. One hand continued to spin his staff, and he stomped with one leg. The earth quaked, knocking Sikong Chuho away. He then slashed at Suixiao. The girl's black hair fluttered. Her mysterious smile vanished, and her expression turned grim. One of her hands suddenly grabbed, and a scroll of twinkling gold light was thrown out. Immediately afterwards in this spirit light, this treasure instantly opened with a clear sound. More than 100 ancient script characters of gold and silver flew out from the book. These scripts hovered and immediately enlarged. Then they became countless substantive things that directly surrounded Xiangqinxing. This treasure was known as Exhausted Bamboo Slat's Book, a rarely seen ancient treasure. It was not to be outdone by flying swords. Xiangqinxing bellowed, and the skin on his body became as hard as iron. Golden light coiled about him endlessly. The characters from the Exhausted Bamboo Slat's Book twisted, booming endlessly against him. The lights of gold and silver exploded on Xiangqinxing's body, not only shattering the golden light surrounding Xiangqinxing, they also knocked Xiangqinxing into tumbling continuously away. These gold and silver characters were unexpectedly each abnormally strong. The 3 of them working together in a powerful attack had obstructed a monster as invincible as Xiangqinxing. When Tai Shuang saw this, he was slightly overjoyed. Surreptitiously increasing instantly the magic energy, he imbued the flying swords even more. Suixiao was indifferent. As she used the Exhausted Bamboo Slat's Book, she also used blank space to gradually and endlessly spit out talismans. The Exhausted Bamboo Slat's Book suddenly shuddered, and even more ancient characters spilled out from the book. Golden light flashed. Xiangqinxing's face was stiff as numerous talisman scripts surrounded and attacked him. Without another word he raised his hands. The staff in his hands was his life-cast magic weapon. The staff rose and swept away all of the characters. When Suixiao saw this, she could not help but be stunned. On the other side, Sikong Dongnyo did not hold back. Although she had escaped by the skin of her teeth, she hated Xiangqinxing to the bone. She grit her teeth. Unable to abide her elder sister's instructions, she raised a spotlessly white and perfect mirror. This mirror aimed and reflected the golden light around Xiangqinxing's hard-as-iron body. Immediately, a pure white light beam shot out from the mirror. That golden light was unable to fecund, and upon being illuminated by the light beam, the protective golden light greatly dimmed. Even the Xiangqinxing who possessed sturdy defenses was somewhat drained, making Tai Shuang inwardly startled. This obscuring light mirror, 6, was the Sikong sisters' trump card. It was specialized in restricting light-based abilities, and was capable of absorbing them. Originally, it was prepared for use against careless star masters during the 5th phase of the star duels, but seeing that Xiangqinxing was invulnerable, Sikong Dongnyo did not hesitate at all. Xiangqinxing's 4 pupils looked all around. When he saw this scene, he grunted and plunged far away, with one of his hands snapping several times. Suddenly his giant staff boomed loudly. Fine arcs of lightning manifested on the staff, but they were instantly destroyed. The golden around his body was absorbed by the obscuring light mirror. The talismans, flying swords, scripts, and sword chi boomed down on him like a tidal wave. When Sikong Chuha saw that her little sister had used the magic weapon, she inwardly sighed and she promptly said, "Everyone, if you have any other abilities, please use them quickly. If we let this demon manifest his true body, we will be very misfortunate." The words Supervoid stage demon beast were enough to make them despair. Tai Shuang's eyes flashed with slight hesitation. In the end, he nevertheless restrained his thoughts. He mouthed an incantation, utilizing his sword array at its highest realm. Sikong Chuha's heart was vexed that this elegant man was narrow-minded, still surprisingly holding back at this time. However, Tai Shuang's sword array was powerful. The flying swords assumed a 9 gates formation, layered and interlocked, providing support in and out. The 9-layered absolute destruction sword array attacked Xiang Qinqing mercilessly. Immediately afterwards, Su Yixiao threw out a supreme-grade talisman, life-breaking talisman. Xiang Qinqing's stiff expression finally showed astonishment. The obscuring light mirror broke his defenses, the absolute destruction sword array destroyed, the life-breaking talisman attacked, and the snow woman lantern restrained. The 4 of them worked together, and Xiang Qinqing was immediately unable to persist. Even a Supervoid cultivator would inevitably die under such a concentrated assault, right? Tai Shuang's eyes flashed with a bright light. He suddenly dashed forward, prepared to take Xiang Qinqing's life in one stroke, to obtain the power of a supercluster stage Crimson Star. Sikong Chuha's expression changed, and she cursed his stupidity. Thunder rolled. The vanished golden light suddenly surged into the 9 firmaments. A giant demon beast appeared in front of everyone. That beast was covered in golden scales and a giant carapace. Its build was like a small mountain, almost like a dragon. A pair of pupils were like lanterns. Xiang Qinqing had finally revealed his true body to everyone under their attacks. As Sikong Chuha had thought, he was astonishingly a demon beast with extremely powerful defense. Luminous golden scorch. 7. Those golden scales and that giant shell were nigh unbreakable. The golden armored demon beast's own body was a defense that even the obscuring light mirror could not handle. Ah! Tai Shuang gasped in astonishment. Xiang Qinqing bellowed, barreling forwards violently, his 4 hooves booming, as if he tread on thunder. A Supervoid demon beast's head-on aggression was powerful enough to directly frighten Tai Shuang into freezing up. Heavy Black lowered its head and charged as well. The star beast and Xiang Qinqing's true body slammed into each other head-on. Bang! Heavy Black was surprisingly killed instantly, and the remaining force continued forth without stop onto Tai Shuang's body. The man groaned, for his bones had all shattered, and blood leaked from his orifices. He was a miserable sight, his body seemingly a slab of rubber as he flew far away. Even if he did not die, he would no doubt be a cripple. Using their true body was the greatest humiliation for every demon cultivator. As far as they were concerned, this was like a beautiful girl being forced to undress and bare her naked body in order to avoid calamity. Xiang Qinqing's eyes were already spouting fury. On one hand, to make a demon cultivator use their true body was to say that he was out of options. On the other, this posed an even more terrifying foe to the cultivators. Roar! Xiang Qinqing did not hesitate to barrel towards Sikong Chuha, who was closest to him. With a Supervoid demon beast's speed and strength, Sikong Chuha was already undoubtedly dead. This time, even if Su Yixiao threw out a life-breaking talisman, she was already unable to change Xiang Qinqing's attack. Absolute despair instantly burst forth in Sikong Chuha's heart, yet she worried for her little sister. Bang! Sikong Chuha only felt an enormously violent astral wind launch at her. The force of the powerfully defensive demon beast's charge completely ran uncontested through her magic weapon defenses. Sikong Chuha was slammed by this astral wind, and her body could not help but involuntarily fly away as she accepted this fate of death. It seemed that when the time came for her to die, it was not as painful as she imagined. It was even somewhat gentle. Sikong Chuha felt that she was being hugged by a soft body. Elder sister! Elder sister! Her little sister's worried voice reached her ears. Sikong Chuha opened her eyes and looked. She then discovered that Sikong Dongnyo was hugging her, and that although her whole body hurt, she was nevertheless free of any wounds. Elder sister, we must quickly help her. Sikong Dongnyo shouted. Xiang Qinqing's true body was stopped several chi away from Sikong Chuha by 2 pieces of silk. The soft silk strips of cloth carried an inconceivable flexibility, obstructing Xiang Qinqing at the last possible moment. She was saved by none other than Su Yixiao once again. The young girl's black hair fluttered, and her brow was locked tight, her expression strained. Beads of sweat slid down her forehead. The girl used all her strength to bind Xiangqinxing. The 2 pieces of silk were none other than her own long sleeves. Sleeves help dance beautifully. 8. Sikong Chuha immediately recognized the name of this power. This ability, passed down from the Heavenly Lady, fluttered the sleeves and was able to bind any hard object, 9 in the world. The power itself was magnificent, like a fairy's dance moves. Sikong Chuha had once heard of this sleeves help dance beautifully, but in Liangshan continent in the past, a Han dynasty imperial family had forbidden it and gave no one information. She never expected to see it resurface. Although Su Yixiao used sleeves help dance beautifully to constrict Xiangqinxing, to strangle this kind of demon beast was practically impossible. The girl could only use all her strength to stall him. That profoundly mysterious expression of hers was already somewhat grim. Sikong Chuha called for her little sister, and decided to once again use the yin-yang twin swords. Towards this Star Master who had saved her little sister, and then herself, Sikong Chuha felt extremely conflicted. Exhausted Bamboo Slat's book. Sleeves help dance beautifully. Just who was this somewhat mysterious woman? For the first time, Sikong Chuha was somewhat curious. Lady Snake Scorpion recalled Savage Star double-headed snake Xie Diao back into the star nest. In the Taiyi spherical heaven form array, there was no need to let her stick around and die. She looked at the arrogant woman in front of her, and Lady Snake Scorpion showed a victor's sneer. Die 9 Tattooed Dragons Shijin. Minute Star 9 Tattooed Dragons Shijin's 9 divine weapons were truly troublesome to deal with. Especially that 5-star destined weapon Yellow Dragon Staff that was hard for even Lady Snake Scorpion to ward off. Now their sudden surprise attack and the assistance of the Taiyi spherical heaven form array enormously aided Lady Snake Scorpion. All star generals in the array were completely trapped, and they could only bare their necks in preparation for death. Seeing that the famous 9 tattooed dragons was about to die by her hand, Lady Snake Scorpion could hardly conceal the excitement inside her heart. Shi Jingluan used the yellow dragon staff to prop her body up. The woman was currently urging on her dragon tattoo, innate skill with all her strength. Her jade skin continuously flickered with dragon patterns, as if they were about to come alive, roaring. 9 tattooed dragons attempted to lift herself from the array, but every single time was taxing. Never expected that you surprisingly have still not signed a contract. Let us see who can save you this time. Lady Snake Scorpion jeered. Looking at the dead and wounded 9 dragons palace disciples strewn about, Shi Jingluan's haughty expression showed pain. She gazed at Lady Snake Scorpion with an expression full of hatred and a bone-chilling cold. Lady Snake Scorpion was already accustomed to this sort of expression. She was the Star Master Poison Overlord of the Vermilion Bird territory. Even the Star Masters of the other 4 mountains had been killed by her, taking their star energy. The current Lady Snake Scorpion was astonishingly nearing a breakthrough to Supervoid stage. What she cultivated was also the Snake Scorpion Heart Sutra, increasing her toxic cultivation method and profundity. Sooner or later, those White Tiger territory demons would also die at Lady Snake Scorpion's hand. Lady Snake Scorpion sneered as she drew the Star's Falling Dragon sword. Waving the sword, white lights twinkled upon it. The twinkling became a glaring light ball, and there was a vaguely visible dragon-like silhouette in the light ball. Just as it was slowly taking shape, the light ball shot over like a starlight, surprisingly bringing a thundering noise, about to kill Shi Jingluan. But Shi Jingluan had no intentions of retreating. Rather, she urged on her star energy, and the dragon tattoos on her body instantly expanded, flying with a roar. And at this moment, several unusually thick and white sword lights flashed by in front of Shi Jingluan. Shi Jingluan took a small breath. This kind of calmness made Lady Snake Scorpion slightly displeased. The Star Masters and Star Generals she had killed so far all were in incomparable despair. Even if this minute Star Shi Jin's martial force was domineering, so what? Snorting, it was just at this moment that a sword light suddenly shot out. And after this purple sword light emerged, it suddenly expanded with a crackle, instantly becoming a tire-sized crescent that broke her pure white falling dragon sword lights. Lady Snake Scorpion flowery complexion paled, but regardless, She was the Vermilion Bird Territory's #1 Star Master. She had other abilities. She breathed out a poison fog. After a muffled bang, the sword light split apart, instantly becoming several smaller fragments. Then, they dueled with the stars falling dragon sword lights. Boom. Those light beams slammed against the sword lights without any restraint. Purple beams and white lights flashed. The two kinds of extreme blazes exploded in the area. Countless glittering lights appeared in midair. The two cold chi spread through the entire space in the blink of an eye. Powerful sword wind blew Lady Snake Scorpion into an extremely sorry figure, and a chill tickled her back. Courting death. Lady Snake Scorpion furiously shouted. She waved her hand, and a blinding, highly poisonous black net flew out from her palm. The frightening poison chi and speed practically reached Shi Jingluan's front in the blink of an eye, with an air-shattering screech. Then the air issued an unpleasant stench. Lady Snake Scorpion clicked her tongue. The Grand Nine Tattooed Dragons Shi Jingluan, to turn the absolutely magnificent Star Maiden into an ugly corpse at the end with her 1,000 spider poison shadow, was truly too tragic. The poison fog dispersed. Shi Jingluan was perfectly unharmed, and in front of her was already a beautiful man. The still regretful Lady Snake Scorpion suddenly stopped. The man wore a green long gown, and his cultivation was surprisingly Supervoid stage. He held a long sword in his hand, and the sword emitted a powerful pressure. Supervoid Sword Saint? Who are you? Lady Snake Scorpion bared her teeth at this man who interfered with her. Your servant dislikes snake and scorpion women like you. Lu Tianya's tone was gentle, as if he was speaking with a lover. Compared to her husband's bold and powerful body, Lady Snake Scorpion suddenly extremely loathed this kind of pretty boy. So it turns out you found a man as well, Shi Jin. No wonder you did not sign a contract, haha. Lady Snake Scorpion thought that Minute Star 9 Tattooed Dragons thought that the reason why Minute Star 9 Tattooed Dragons did not sign a contract was that she had taken a fancy to this Supervoid Sword Saint who was unable to contract, thus she laughed out loud. Shi Jingluan paid no heed, but she wrinkled her brow. Lu Tianya, you do not need to mind me. Go protect Qingxi for now. Qingxi wants to take this chance to induct her sisters into the uprising, but because she worries for Imperial Empress, she has ordered your servant to hurry over. Lu Tianya answered calmly. But, Shi Jingluan hesitated, but she knew that Qingxi was a thorough person and said nothing more. She knew that now that the fourth phase Heavenly Books was on the eve of beginning, uprising other sisters was already their most urgent matter. The Taiyi Spherical Heaven Form Array gave her a perfect opportunity to use the uprising's ability to protect those star maidens who were not necessarily fortunate. What uprising do you speak of? Lady Snake Scorpion felt this was foreboding, and she coldly said, Could you be thinking of interrupting our star duel? Lu Tianya elegantly and gracefully took up his sword. A sword tip pointed at Lady Snake Scorpion, as if it was at her back. He seemed to be saying, Even if I die, she will not take a single step. Lady Snake Scorpion was indignant, and she was about to say something. Suddenly, a chill crawled over her skin. Lady Snake Scorpion hastily withdrew. A portion of her shirt was ripped apart by sword chi, and it was then that Lady Snake Scorpion felt a bit of fear. This was the first time that she had encountered a sword saint who did not fear Maiden Mountain. Truly stupid. No wonder Shi Jin does not sign a contract. This man is honestly somewhat capable. Lady Snake Scorpion would not let go of this opportunity. She urged on the 1,000 spider poison shadow. An invisible poison threads attacked Lu Tianya. The latter was as calm as water, but his footsteps were not the slight bit inattentive. The sword in his hand waved, and snow-white sword chi twisted apart the poison threads. But this was merely Lady Snake Scorpion's diversion. The next second, Lady Snake Scorpion was like a sword unsheathed, a cold glint flashing by. Two goo creatures, a snake and a scorpion, suddenly flew out. These snake and scorpion goo were the goo that Lady Snake Scorpion was most proud of. Ever since she lost the 10,000-year goo, Lady Snake Scorpion had concentrated all of her power to refining these goo. The snake and scorpion goo were like a set of imperceptible battle monsters. Poison fog wafted, and poison light spread. Its unstoppable progress was merciless and its attacks severe. Each strike would enter into Lu Tianya's range. However, the strange thing was that Lu Tianya was unimpressed. Lady Snake Scorpion's attacks was far from as deadly as he had imagined. Lu Tianya merely used his sword chi as a way to make a shelter, easily making Lady Snake Scorpion's snake and scorpion goo incapable of progressing. Since this is the case, then off you go, Lu Tianya gently said. He raised his arm, and a powerful sword chi burst out from his sword, forming a terrifying force that washed away the entire place. In an instant, in just a single instant, Lady Snake Scorpion's beautiful pupils suddenly contracted. Boom. Just looking at this world-breaking explosion, even the shockwave was capable of disintegrating the entire palace. All the cultivators were terror-stricken. You damned man. The dust dispersed and Lady Snake Scorpion cut a very sorry figure. The woman's clothes were in shambles, and her snow-white skin showed burning wounds. But she was fairly tenacious, surprisingly still able to stand. Lady Snake Scorpion raised a hand, and a familiar and terrifying poison thread gathered in her hand. Die! Lady Snake Scorpion cursed. A poison shadow shot out from Lady Snake Scorpion's hand. Lu Tianya's right hand waved. The poison shadow was knocked aside, but in that instant he waved his hand. Lu Tianya simultaneously already set his speed in motion. After he warded off the poison shadow, Lu Tianya directly reached her front, forcibly crossing the distance of several zhang between them. His speed was swift as a demon's, and before she could react, the long sword in his hand hacked down towards Lady Snake Scorpion. Supervoid sword saints possessed absolutely overpowering martial force. You unexpectedly dare to kill me. Lady Snake Scorpion's face sunk. Just as the beauty was about to die, at this moment, a golden light flit by and snatched her away. Its speed was fast enough to make even Lu Tianya startled. This Supervoid sword saint turned around to stand guard in front of Shi Jingluan. His long sword flew about, and the clangs of strikes landed. However, at this time, he had already lost his chance to kill Lady Snake Scorpion. You damned Supervoid sword saint, you would go so far as to kill my wife. Lord husband. Lady Snake Scorpion was overjoyed. Her savior was none other than Great Sage Falling Sky Rock Demon King. Wife, there is no need to worry. Husband shall dispatch this bastard for you. The Rock Demon King showed a cold expression as he stared fixedly at Lu Tianya. Lu Tianya's eyebrows rose. His hand heedlessly gripped his weapon tight, and his expression became more serious than before, as if a storm's stuffiness was suddenly approaching. Without another word, after the Rock Demon King set down Lady Snake Scorpion, he immediately pounced. The Rock Demon King's cultivation was considerably profound. Just his magic energy alone did not lose out to Lu Tianya, and the martial arts the Rock Demon King cultivated at Falling Dragon Mountain similarly could not be underestimated. His hand gripped a golden club that struck at Lu Tianya's head. Killing intent drenched Lu Tianya, following the contours of his face, and drawing out blood in his mouth. Lu Tianya was quiet. He breathed slowly and deeply, letting the killing intent strike him, his person indifferent as a flower. This kind of quiet killing intent was actually quite obstructive. Go. Lu Tianya's finger curled. The sword chi in his hand then became a dragon that coiled towards the Rock Demon King. Their powerful cultivations dueled, surprisingly churning the ocean waters. A torrent emerged and poured down, becoming a heavy rain. In this rain, a wave of scorching heat broke out. A snow-white sword tip split it apart. Hey! Sword chi blossomed from Lu Tianya's hand. The rainwater gradually crumbled away, and sword chi passed through the screen of controlled water, and formed a perfectly coordinated attack. The Rock Demon King roared. A strong pressure surprisingly destroyed this terrifying attack of rain. Lu Tianya lowered his stance and instantly bolted forward a distance of 1 zhang. The power of his sword tip crisscrossed where Lu Tianya originally stood, exploding, evaporating into a boiling splash. Wind howled in every direction, blowing out fires. Evading killing intent, it tore at the Rock Demon King. As befitting the ruler of Falling Dragon Mountain, the Rock Demon King took a swift step and tread upon the rainwater, directly using force to push this down, as if he was Mount Tai. Meanwhile, Lu Tianya sprung upwards. He aggressively attacked. This level of ground was completely pulverized. Lu Tianya used extremely quick speed to close in, a pinch of sword light in his palm blasting. The Rock Demon King struck back with his club. But just at this moment, Lu Tianya's sword vanished like a shadow from his eyes. Then, an intense pain struck his chest. The Rock Demon King flew out. Sigh at world's end. Impressive. Lu Tianya's 5 fingers opened, unexpectedly feeling pain. Lu Tianya instantly shifted to the opposite side. Die. Wherever the Rock Demon King looked, his powerful strength burst. Explosions continuously erupted behind Lu Tianya, slightly astonishing him. Courting death. Golden light unfolded in the rain. A club swing suddenly produced wind, carrying a strong momentum that smashed towards him head-on. The longsword and club clashed. Lu Tianya immediately felt his chi and blood roll, and he felt the inside of his body seemingly about to explode. The Rock Demon King sneered and used an escape technique. Lu Tianya felt his eyes get blinded. The Rock Demon King's club already attacked. Lu Tianya's reactions were quick, barely blocking with his sword. Then he used a happy excursion, forcing the Rock Demon King back. A Supervoid sword saint is no more than this. The Rock Demon King laughed aloud. He possessed his winged escape technique. His speed alone could make Lu Tianya look at nothing but dust. If it was not for his sword saint reaction, any other person would have already died. Great Sage Falling Dragon is only capable of this much? Lu Tianya gracefully wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth, showing a disdainful expression. The Shijingluan at his side tightly gripped her yellow dragon staff. If it was not for being trapped in the array, 9 tattooed dragons would have already intervened. Then this sage shall allow you to witness my true power. The Rock Demon King's body emitted golden light. He suddenly opened his mouth and bellowed with the sound of thunder. The rolling sound wave contained the might of a supervoid peak. Shaking the surrounding several dozen countless cultivators were knocked unconscious and then died. Lu Tianya himself nearly lapsed as well. Rocks cry 9 firmaments. 3. The Rock Demon King shouted once more. This time, the shaking nearly dislodged Lu Tianya's weapon from his hand. Lord Husband, your savant shall help you. Lady Snake Scorpion sneered. Once again, she used the 1,000 spider poison shadow. Countless poisonous threads formlessly wrapped around. Although Lu Tianya wanted to dodge, under this sound wave, his consciousness basically could not exert any control. Lu Tianya had been heavily injured at the Bright Moon Longevity Palace, and had only recovered a little more than halfway using the green nether gourd. Far from his peak state, encountering the domineering Rock Demon King, how could he last? The 1,000 spider poison shadow tore into his whole body. Lu Tianya softly sighed, yet his eyes did not admit defeat in the slightest. He stared at Lady Snake Scorpion and suddenly moved. Bang! The Rock Demon King was already on guard. The club in his hand swung and sent Lu Tianya flying. Lu Tianya. Shijingluan was stunned. This was the first time she had seen him be beaten back. A minor wound, nothing more. Lu Tianya tenaciously stood up. Lord Husband, send this damned couple to hell. Lady Snake Scorpion charmingly smiled. The Rock Demon King naturally would not let him go. But just at this moment, a multicolored light like that of a heavenly canopy descended. Wife, be careful. The Rock Demon King immediately let out protective golden light when he saw this, using his divine weapon to strike the multicolored light. This multicolored light was also resilient, surprisingly not collapsing for the time being. Immediately afterwards, the multicolored light rolled. Hey! The Rock Demon King shouted again, directly shouting back the multicolored light that rolled towards Lady Snake Scorpion. This sudden abnormality made Lady Snake Scorpion surprised. The Rock Demon King coldly said, Holy Mother, you surprisingly aid the Azure Dragon Territory's cultivators. A beautiful figure emerged who was precisely Holy Mother Xia. Lady Snake Scorpion, you betrayed the agreement for the 7 Stars Assembly. You killed my disciple. And today, we shall properly assess this debt. Holy Mother Xia coldly said. Very well. The Rock Demon King laughed. Lu Tianya, are you still fine? Shijingluan asked. Seeing the tranquility in Nine Tattooed Dragon's eyes, Lu Tianya slightly sighed and nodded. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.